Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 349. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the president of the SOS. So says the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim, we do a casual chat in the beginning about things like Injustice, the Man of Steel trailer, and just different things that have been going on right now. But then we leap into an in-depth discussion about Constantine issues 1 and 2. We also talk about Action Comics number 19, Batgirl number 19, and Batman and Robin number 19 in a very packed episode. So we hope you guys really enjoy this. These are some books that are really important to us right now. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, we're talking about Action Comics on this episode, and I wanted to shout out Action Comics number 21 is currently available for pre-order. Writers are Andy Diggle and Scott Lobdell, art by Tony Daniel and various. Superman is portrayed by his own DNA, and in the backup story, learn the New 52 origin of the Parasite. This is a great title right now. I've really been enjoying, this new take, this new direction, I should say. It's not a new take, it's the same take, but it's a new direction with the new creative team. I'm curious to see, the payoff in this. I know we're losing Andy Diggle as the writer on it, but I'm certainly going to support the title while he's on it because so far he's delivering, and I'm very anxious for news on who's taking over that book. But I wanted to shout out that he will still be on with issue 21, and you can still pre-order that one. So, very cool stuff there. I want to remind everyone that DCB Service is a digital partner. That includes Comixology and Diamond Digital / Iverse Media. Every time you make a purchase there, if you link your accounts at DCBService.com, you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB Service order. So I encourage you to do that because what ends up happening is you're spending this money anyway. At least start earning that credit towards something you can buy, or if you're a DCB Service shopper already, you can use that credit to cut down on your order, to take something off. Sometimes that winds up being a whole, a comic or two, or, even cuts on your shipping or something. It's great as an opportunity to just cut back some more savings for yourself just for shopping at DCBService.com with that. Over at InStockTrades.com, I don't know if any of you out there are reading Dial H, but I'm really digging this series. And this collects issues 0 through 6. It's called Dial H Trade Paperback Volume 1, Into You. This is one of the new 52 books, and it's $14.99 regularly, 50% off, only $7.49. It's a 168-page count book. It takes place in the town of Littleville, Colorado. A troubled young man stumbles upon the lost H-dial and all the power it possesses. Can our hero manage to harness the power of the H-dial and protect it from falling into evil hands? Or will this newfound power plunge our hero into madness? I always like to shout this kind of stuff out because it's a great opportunity to jump on these books. If maybe you're like, it didn't fit in my budget, but I'm interested in it, I definitely can't recommend this book enough because it's very quirky and very cool. And, especially when you got a guy who every time he dials, he's not sure what kind of hero he's going to get. But what I love is the background story on where these heroes come from. And you got to read the book to see that. But pick up Dial H. And remember, InStockTrades.com, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, I wanted to casually talk about first, on Twitter, I had a friend who posted and asked me the question, have I been reading the comic Injustice Gods Among Us, and did I get the game? The first answer to the first question is, yes, I've been reading the digital comic. I actually avoided it for a little bit because I don't have a console right now. But then I found out that there was going to be an iPad version of the game, so I'm kind of like, well, I'd like to read the comic. And I got to be honest with you, aside from that, I also heard from a number of people, actually Mike Myers from DC Noise, I believe he was posting that he had read it and really enjoyed the comic book. And, I always value when somebody's given a positive opinion of a comic that they're really digging and shouting it out. So I apologize if I'm misquoting him, but I thought he said that he was reading it and digging it. So that made me jump over and go, hey, you know what? I need to read this. So I gave it a shot, and I really dig the story. It's an alternate DC Universe storyline where the premise is, what would happen if one of the villains got to people close to Superman? And I mean got to them permanently. What would that do to Superman and his worldview and in the way that he considers handling villains? And what would that ultimately do to the heroes that support him? Who would support him? Who would not support him? How would the villains feel about all that? And it leads to this whole premise as far as why there would be a world where heroes would fight heroes and stuff like that. And villains would fight villains. So it sets up this whole cool scenario. Here's the cast of characters in this game, though. Aquaman, Ares, Bane, Batman, Black Adam, Catwoman, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Doomsday, The Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Harley Quinn, Hawkgirl, The Joker, Killer Frost, Lex Luthor, Nightwing, Raven, Shazam, Sinestro, Solomon Grundy, Superman, Wonder Woman. Then there's other characters who appear in the game, like Killer Croc, Two-Face, Tomar Ray, the Green Lantern Corps members, Atom Smasher, Giganta. These are background characters in it. There's statues of characters in the game. Gorilla Grodd, Trigon, Starro, Atrocitus are in this game. I have the iPad version of the game right now, and you can put your characters in squads of 3. So I'm currently playing with Nightwing, the New 52 Green Lantern, and Bane. I ended up and what happens is in the iPad version of the game, you earn credits as you play the game. And you can use those credits to buy cards, which give you the characters, but also give you upgrades to your characters. So I ended up switching to Bane. I don't even remember who my original team was now because I quickly acquired Bane and couldn't wait to have that character. And I got the New 52 Green Lantern for connecting my Warner Brothers ID to the app. So it gave me an unlock right away from that. The cool part about this game is the iPad version of the game is going to be different than the console version of the game in the sense that you can do this 3-squad thing. You unlock characters and items in the iPad version, or the iOS version, I should say. And that version can connect back with the console version of the game and will unlock stuff there. And then vice versa, where the console version of stuff will unlock stuff in the iOS version. The cast of characters is staggering. I mean, that's the playable characters that I listed first, and then some of the other ones like Killer Croc and stuff like that that are background characters. They announced the first downloadable content. It's Lobo.
Really?
Yes. And obviously they're going to be more, as judging from the success of the game, which I've heard nothing but a lot of buzz about this game. There's going to be more downloadable characters as the game goes on. So Lobo is the first of the downloadable content that's been announced, which is cool. The diverse lineup of characters is really staggering, though. I saw this real cool bit in one of the videos where there were 2 heroes fighting, and one of them got punched into, in the background, Giganta and Atom Smasher were fighting. They got punched into the hand of one of them and then thrown back. So, I mean, literally knocked over that distance. It's really great. I saw also a battle sequence involving Superman and Shazam. It's really a cool premise for a game. There's this part of me that's I'm a PC gamer right now, and it's not because I hate consoles. I love consoles. I've actually talked about consoles on the show. I really kind of downsized my whole gaming because financially, I supported upgrading my PC and stuff like that because I use it for work and the podcast. So, it just seems to be the way, and I really like gaming on it. I've got a nice gaming setup here. This game is making me think, ooh, I kind of would love to play this because I'm enjoying the iOS version, knowing that the full-blown game on the consoles is going to be definitely significantly more depth to it, more larger playing field areas, and the move combos and things you're going to be able to do are going to be really cool. But the cast of characters and how accurately they seem to be portrayed, I think, is pretty stellar.
Yeah, Kevin Smith was on Opie and Anthony, and he was talking about this game, and it was just going on a couple of the cool fight sequences, and he was talking about this one of the Superman fight sequences. He punches somebody into outer space, flies up there, then punches him back down to Earth. That
was the Shazam sequence.
Okay.
He knocked Shazam back down to Earth. That was at least what I saw from the Shazam sequence. It's very cool. I mean, and I like that there's multiple costumes from different eras. I just think it's a really neat, and I guess if it's successful, it's supposed to be the launching of a game series, meaning that they would follow this up with another game in the future. I think it's great. I think it's great to see DC's properties out there. I think gaming is a great way to bring in new comic book fans. I think it's, especially with the digital, output now available in comics, I think it's a great way to reach a different audience and get people who are interested in those games, because gamers are people that are interested in swag, and comic books are swag. So it's a great opportunity, I think, to get people reading. I'm hoping that the digital version of the comic is being marketed. Well, I know that they're including a version of the paper version in the collector's edition of the comic book. I don't know if it's the whole comic series or if they're just including a portion of it or how that's working out, but I think that, and one of our listeners who's got the collector's edition, I'm sure, can speak to that. But I think that's really cool way to reach out because it looks like a really good game. It's done by the makers of Mortal Kombat, so that's in and of itself, because they were acquired by Warner. They've taken and really attacked that franchise. I think it's just a great time to be a DC fan. By the way, happy Superman Day.
Yes, happy Superman Day. Here in Cleveland, we're celebrating the 75th anniversary.
Yeah, we're actually recording on Superman Day, which is the April the 18th. This was the day that Action Comics #1 was launched. So our mayor in Cleveland announced that this was going to be Superman Day. That's a yearly. Is that a yearly thing? Is that how we're taking that?
Well,
or is it?
It should be.
Yeah.
But here, Cleveland politics and Cleveland, I don't know. I actually do enjoy living in Cleveland. I like how things are laid out here, but we do a couple things really stupid. And one of the things is there's not enough celebration of some of the great stuff we have going on here. And one of the things that has been sadly, and just woefully ignored and just not properly recognized is the fact that Siegel and Schuster are from Cleveland. That Superman was created here and born and raised right here in Cleveland. And it's it does anger and annoy me. So it should be an annual event. It should be something. We should have a nice large statue commemorating that Superman was born in Cleveland, which we don't have. We have a display in the luggage area of the Cleveland airport, but it's lower level that no one gets to see. Come on, guys. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Disney. It's one of the things that I love about just the whole Disney concept. I love the history. I love the classic animated films. I love the classic shorts. And all the way through modern days, I love that Pixar's a part of them now and that's continuing on. But the legacy of Walt Disney and the fact that that's honored, and Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy and those characters are, for the creativity and the longevity of those characters, they're constantly honored. I think that that's really great. It's honoring the creativity and also all of the creative people that have touched on them over the years, I think is really something that's important. I would like to see the same thing happen with Superman. I think this is a good launching point. The Plain Dealer had something on Sunday, and Michael Sangiacomo did just a wonderful job. He wrote a terrific article about Superman and what's been done right and what hasn't been done enough about honoring Cleveland's history with this character. It was just it was right in the front page. Stellar. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
It was great to see that. My wife gets the Weekend Plain Dealer, and I said, please save that for me because I just think it's great. And I applaud Michael Sangiacomo for his work on that. But I'm glad to see Cleveland doing something to acknowledge it. They did the Terminal Tower. They did the colors of Superman displayed on the Terminal Tower, and Superman showed up there.
Yeah.
Which I think that's great. I just think and I hope that this is something that people are attracted to, and we get to see more acknowledgement of that character's rich history, because comics are something, they're an art form. They're as much of an art form as the Disney films are, and the rich history of comics should be embraced. It should be applauded. And I think it's really great that this step's been taken. I'm with you. I know where you're going as far as, is it enough? Have we done, are they going to keep following this up? I don't know, but I was glad to see the first step taken. I applaud them for doing it. I hope that continues. And I hope we see more of that for more of the characters throughout comics. Because these anniversaries now, after Superman are going to keep hitting. for these characters, and I hope to see more acknowledgement of this kind of material and the importance of it to American culture, because it is something that's unique to what we've done here, and the creativity of the people that have put these books together is something that really should be applauded. And the rich longevity and history of this character, especially this year. Man, that movie. Did you see the third trailer?
Yes, I have.
So
I'm very excited. I'm getting giddy for this new Superman movie now. Before I was like, oh, that could be cool. Oh, and now I'm like, yay! And just, this is going to be really cool. I'm thinking this is going to be definitely an opening night now.
Here's my thing. I'm hoping I'm really liking the trailers so far, and the fact that they're being very cautious and viral about what they're presenting. I like that they're giving us a lot of info, but not too much info. I don't want to walk into the film knowing what the whole film's going to be. Yes, I know Superman's story. I get all that. But I like with this film that they're giving me teases and tastes without giving me everything. I want to geek out about it on this show after I go and see it with you. I'm looking so forward to. I mean, I don't think I've been so. I want to start recording about it now, and I think that's the way we should feel about a film. And I want to feel about that afterwards. I have so much confidence this film is going to be a home run. I keep wanting to say to myself, maybe I should pull myself back. Art Lion was talking about this, lower expectations. So that way, you don't walk in with high expectations and you're kind of blown away. I'm convinced I'm going to walk in there with high expectations and still be blown away. It's that kind of film. I had the same anticipation for the Batman movies by Nolan, and they delivered every time. So I'm excited that I'm walking in knowing that I'm feeling like this is going to be a home run, and they're going to shock me anyway. And that's the kind of experience that I'm expecting to have when I see this film, just like Nolan did. So, and I know that this is supposed to. There's all the rumors about this leading into, further development of the Justice League franchise, or maybe further DC films, which will then lead to the relaunch of Batman and all that kind of stuff. Because I know Nolan and Bale. It's officially been announced that they're out, that they weren't a part of all that. And I don't mind if they do a reboot. That's no insult to Nolan and Bale. I love and adored Nolan and Bale. I was geeking out when there was the rumor that they would be involved. But if they do a great reboot, that's fine. Go ahead and do that as well. Because Nolan and Bale's story I thought was really complete, and I'm very content with that to stay that way too. So I have no problem with that going either way. This franchise, though, to see this launched into something bigger for the whole DC universe, to me is what better character to launch it than Superman? So he seems like that he should be that flagship character would do it, right?
Oh God, yeah. I think this. I'm hoping this leads into everything, and we start getting, the further Justice League. I want more of this. I want, I'm reading the comics, I'm watching the cartoons, I'm watching the TV shows. Let's hit the big screen. Let's hit it hard and heavy. Now is a good time for comic book movies. Superhero movies are making money. There are people who aren't comic book fans, who aren't currently reading the comic book, who are going to movies. Yes. And I've talked to a lot of people from work who they've never read comics. They enjoy the concept of comics, and they've seen the Avengers movies. They've seen the X movies. They've seen Spider-Man. And they're like, hey, what about DC? What about Superman? When's that coming out? And just people, people want more. Let's hit it. Let's do this.
See, I want to see the Marvel-DC rivalry take place in film. I want to see the rivalry continue. I think it's good for comic fans to have these intense rivalries between the two companies where they're delivering high-quality content and they keep upping their game. I want to see that rivalry bleed over into the comics. I want to see the comics take the forefront again. I really want to see them take advantage of these opportunities to multimedia coordination with these characters. This was what DC Entertainment was supposed to be doing. That was supposed to be the idea of bringing everything under one banner. I like seeing games launch. I like seeing the fact that we're getting another one of these direct DC releases. It's the 23rd, I believe, is the next Superman one.
Yeah.
Then the Flashpoint one's coming this summer in July. Do you see that one's coming out?
Oh, yeah. That's going to be good.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see that we're seeing more of these releases coming out, just more multimedia. The new Batman Arkham Origins, which is going to take place before the other two games, goes kind of to the Silver Age, introduces Batman's first encounter with the Joker, I guess, is supposed to be. At least that's my understanding. But I know with that one, members of the Justice League are supposed to appear in that game because of the nature of the time period. Great game series, and I'm looking forward to seeing more with that game as well. And then there's Moby, it's called, and I gotta admit, it's a PC gaming style. It looks like top down, where it's like online combat, and it looks really cool. They're doing a Moby with it's called Infinite Crisis, I think it's called, and it's going to have like 3 different Batman in it. You know, one of them being your favorite vampire Batman.
Nice.
Yeah. The present universe one, but they're going to be the whole premise is that it's going to have the multiverse, and then Gotham by Gaslight world is going to be in it as well. That's my understanding of it so far. And it's not just going to have the Batman; it's going to do the same thing with the other characters. I think that's fantastic, and it's a great way. I think that's probably going to be a way to address how do you have a few different people playing as the same character. Well, because they're from the multiverse.
Right.
So if I'm understanding it right, this isn't. I don't know how far it is in the development, but from what I've seen in the videos of it, and some people listening are probably got some better information. I mean, feel free to call in if you know more of the details about this game. I would love to have some interaction with our audience members calling into our show voicemail line with some more of those details, because I'm just very excited about seeing DC characters appear elsewhere. What I want to see from that is what I think we all as comic fans want to see. I want to see that bleed over into the comics on some level. And I would love to see those games do that. I would love to see the games have pack-ins of digital comics as well, paper comics as well, maybe coupon for a comic shop, where there's a redemption for, certain comics or something like that as a way to get people interested in, or maybe unlock a coupon. Wouldn't that be a cool unlock in the game?
Yeah.
Like you'll get you can actually go get a free physical comic book or a free digital download of a comic book for unlocking a character, and that would lead people maybe to read more, and maybe not, but I would like to see them try stuff like that, because I think that would be really cool. People love unlockables in games, and I'm not saying that every unlockable should be that, but that would be a cool, when you hit a certain milestone with a character that you've been fighting with, and I think that would be a great incentive to play as every character in the game. Hey, when you get to a certain point with, Hawkgirl, you get to unlock a Hawkman comic, and you get the same certain place with Aquaman, the first issue of the Aquaman comic, or, a milestone couple issues maybe of Aquaman. I think that would be just a great way to introduce people to the comic book world that are gamers who like swag. And I don't know, I just think that stuff is just really very cool and exciting right now, just to see these I'm excited for myself as a fan, even if they don't do those things, to be able to attach onto the media. I'm loving this Injustice game. I like on the iPad. I love picking this thing up, playing as my characters, because they advance. They get experience points, so they become more powerful. And Bane is a powerhouse. Oh, just exactly what you would expect him to be. I mean, the way I look at it is my 2 quick hitters. Like, I start off fighting with Nightwing and Green Lantern, and for some reason, it's like I let these 2 do some of the dirty work early on, but then when I'm really ready to pummel and take out the 3 opponents, I whip in Bane, and I start doing his special moves, and he just destroys people in a way that you would expect him to. It's just a great game. It's really fun to play, and it's cool to be playing as characters that I'm attached to, that are really important to me. Go ahead.
Now, this is a side-by-side fighter like Mortal Kombat was, or?
Yes. And the iPad version is the same. It's played differently than the console version. The console version will be with a controller with a full library of moves. So I want to separate the two. The way that the iPad version works, it's tapping and swiping.
Oh, okay.
But then each character has special moves that you unlock, where when you've done enough fighting, you build up like a power meter. But then, like, Lex Luthor will come out in his power suit, and he'll blast you, and it knocks you back down to 0 on that. So you've got to use a lot of strategy of when to pull characters in and out, so you keep your character powerful that you want ready to, like, pummel somebody. So it's really it's a cool strategy game for the iPad. And I'm speaking more to the iPad version, not because I'm diminishing the console version. It's just the opposite. I know the console version is going to blow away and is blowing away that version. but I'm really enjoying that version. So this is a version of the game where I'm like, wow, I'm really enjoying playing this so much. And I know it's so different from the way the console version will be that it'd be a nice companion piece to actually play the console version and do some of these unlocks. Which means that I would have to decide, like, what game system do I want to play this on if I want to get it. It's available for Wii U, Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3. So I don't know which version I would like to get if I was going to do it. And I still don't know if I'm going to do it. But, boy, if you had asked me a week ago how I was feeling, I'm in a different place now. And the comic book is part of it. It's a well-written comic book. And you don't need to be playing the game to read the comic. It's a great story independent of the game. The comic brought me into it. It's really cool. I just wanted to shout that out in the beginning just because I think it's kind of cool to talk about all the media. Like, we can talk about a game, that involves these characters, and then talk about Superman Day, and then talk about the Man of Steel. It's great to talk about all these great things that are coming out, and, that we got an animated feature coming out in just a few days. I did a pre-order of it on iTunes just because, I'm really excited to watch that film. And we'll have to end up talking about that one on the show because I love these animated features.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, why don't we jump into talking about a book that I'm really excited about. I don't want to say I was worried. Well, I guess I was kind of worried about it because I'm a big fan of the Vertigo book, Hellblazer, which was canceled. And it was canceled to make room for Constantine. And we're going to talk about issues 1 and 2 casually. The writers are Ray Fawkes and Jeff Lemire. Renato Guedes on art and variant cover, and I apologize for name butchery. Marcelo Mialio, colorist. Sal Cipriano, letterer. Ivan Rice, Joe Prado, Rod Rice on covers, Katie Kubert, associate editor, Brian Cunningham, senior editor. And I want to shout out apologies because, wow, they captured to me who Constantine is. Now, you're the one I have a question for on this. I know you've read some Hellblazer, and I know you know the character from things like Justice League Dark and then his reappearance since things like Brightest Day. Seeing Constantine in his solo series now, how is this book for you as... I guess it's safe to say you're a relative newbie to reading the character solo. Very little exposure to the character solo. How does it feel to be reading this series now? What do you think of it 2 issues in?
Oh, I am loving this series. We throw out palate cleanser. We throw out, different terms that we use. The anti-hero. You can call him a lot of different things, but this is just, he's completely, for me, he's a breath of fresh air. He's a completely different type of hero. And when I say hero with Constantine, I always put that around with the little air quotes around the word hero. Not that I'm saying he's an evil person. He's just not so clean cut. There's a little bit of blood on the hands.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Okay.
And I want you to be able to continue what you're saying. So there's a point to this. You throw quotes around calling him a hero. Do you consider him a hero? I don't know that we can actually... I don't know that I think of him that way. He's an interesting... I think of him as a main character. I don't know that I consider him a hero. I don't know that he considers himself a hero. But can you consider him a hero? Do you consider him a hero?
Well, that's why I throw the little quotes around it. Mm-hmm. Because he's not evil, he's not a villain, but he's not really a hero. He is Constantine.
Yes.
He is his own person, his own entity. And I think that's what I am so much enjoying about this. When Justice League Dark came out, that was really my true deep exposure to Constantine. I've read a couple stuff on the guy, nothing too major that I had anything set in stone or I know what Constantine's like. Justice League Dark was really my growth of the character, and what he was going on in that book, I was like, oh man, I'm really loving this guy because he's he's a son of a gun, and I'm like, okay, let's keep going with this. And I was kind of curious to see whether he would do some of the stuff that he's done here, and they're not pulling punches with him, they're not sugarcoating the character. They are keeping Constantine. And yes, he is probably doing good, and he's definitely keeping really powerful stuff out of really evil people's hands. So that's good. But it's that whole, do the ends justify the means? Is it right to kill one person if you're going to save the world? Is it right? Do you look to see if you can find another way? Is there something else he could have done? There's so many different questions that, the moral questions that would be raised. And were it any other person than Constantine, I would have issues with it. But because of who he is, this fits him. This feels comfortable. I'm, with reading this, I'm, entertained by it, and it's just something like, yes, I enjoy this. This is good.
It's funny. I agree totally that this guy, and I agree with everything you're saying. I think the interesting part about Constantine is when you look at the way he handles situations. He looks at a situation and goes, it would be really bad for these people to get a hold of, in this case, it's Croydon's compass. And I can't let them do that because this would make them all powerful. It would destroy the world. Who is he trying to save there? He's trying to save the world, but it's, usually with a hero you can say, like, he's looking at a group of people, there is a sense of attachment to somebody. I don't get that feeling with him. I do think that he's had attachments in his life. I love what they've done in Justice League Dark with Zatanna. I love the history there. So, because it shows us that Constantine has that side to him, which Hellblazer did a great job of. My exposure to Constantine, I jumped on late. I've heard nothing but great things about the character for years. I read a trade once by Jamie Delano, and I loved it. I didn't have any room in my budget for the character, so I was not able to follow it. Then I heard good things again about Andy Diggle's run, and that was where I really started to embrace it. So I'm talking about really late in the series. Like that run so much, I started grabbing more trades from the past. More stuff. I specifically went back for Jamie Delano's stuff just because that was my first exposure, so I started getting more of that. Really have been enjoying that material as I've been going through it. Really enjoyed when Peter Milligan was on the book. That was another just great opportunity. When the series was canceled, very sad because I liked the Vertigo direction. I liked what was going on with the title. Oh my gosh, was I pleasantly surprised by these two issues. Because it has everything that I feel is at the core of great Constantine storytelling. It's set in the DC universe. I think that's great. But I like that I don't feel like what made the Vertigo book great has been thrown out the window. And I'm hoping that other Vertigo fans are getting that same vibe. Because I love Vertigo material, and I was really worried about this coming back into the DC universe. I loved the character in Justice League Dark, the same way that we both have been digging him. I was very worried about Hellblazer being canceled, though, and then what would a solo title look like? I love the moral questions that come in with this guy. I love with Chris that we see him using Chris to find Croydon's compass, to find the three parts of it. We got the needle, the dial, and the lens, right? Is that the three parts I'm thinking of? So, yes. And what he will do when it came down to getting the needle, it was okay to sacrifice Chris to get the needle. He didn't even hesitate. Here's the difference with him. I do think Constantine has regret. I don't think he has remorse. I know that's a weird thing to say. I think he regrets having to do that to Chris. But I don't think he has remorse for those actions because he feels that he needs to get the compass, and if he has to sacrifice Chris to do it, he's willing to do it. So regrets it, but there's no remorse involved. I don't know if am I making sense when I say it that way?
Actually, I think that's a perfect analogy of him because you can't say he's heartless because he's not. Mm-hmm. He does, as you said, he regrets it. I think if there was any other way he could have easily done it, he would have done it. But that was the best choice to take. It's part of it is kind of like it's a little bit cold, but in this world, that's what he's dealing with. He's got to make those bad calls. He's got to make the tough calls, and it's one of those things where I kind of chuckled, and I probably shouldn't have laughed, but it was just when he tells me, hey, I told you, the pain would be there would be no more pain. I promised you that. Well, that's how he got the guy no more pain. He's dead now. There's no suffering when you're dead. Okay, done. But I was like, oh God, dude, man, what? You know what? That's. He kept his word, and it's kind of like the whenever you read a good story that's dealing like with demons and damnation and that whole the dark the dark arts, where, be careful what you ask for, be careful what your deal is, read it and reread it a second time. Make sure you exactly know what you're getting into. And that's, the constant in the Magic universe, where it's very particular what you say. You say, I want this, this, and this. Well, guess what? You're going to get that, but you got to make sure you word it correctly. You make you make your deal solid. And, this is the kind of stuff that Magic gives and takes. There's always a cost to everything you do in Magic, in the Magic universe. And I love the fact that in both of these issues, they're expressing that. There is a cost to this. You have this great power. But guess what? You're going to have to pay the piper. You have to pay someday. The question is, how long can you delay it from happening? And that's something. And it's funny because I'm talking about my comfortability with the Magic universe, but I don't have a long history. I am really under 1 year, or maybe a little bit over a year, within the within the DC Magic universe, and understanding these characters, and I have a comfort with them already. And part of it is because some great foundation in Justice League Dark, but also in this dialogue, in this inner dialogue, in his outwardly appearance, his inner thoughts, and just everything that's going on in this book, I'm getting a real comfortable feel for who Constantine is.
I get asked a lot by friends who either are reading or stopped reading DC because of the New 52. What I think about the whole New 52 concept. Is it working? It's funny, for me as a longtime DC fan, the idea behind this was to bring in new readers and to generate them. And we get a lot of comments from people who are lapsed fans who've come back and are really enjoying the New 52. But where it works for me as a longtime reader, a guy who's been reading since he was a child, reading DC, and seen the universe shifts and things like this before, when I look at stuff like this, and I'm saying, wow, I am reading and enjoying so much of the DC supernatural world and the horror world and whatever you would call these genres in the Magic world, as you're talking about, and really enjoying how well these books are put together. Constantine, Justice League Dark, books like Swamp Thing and Animal Man. These are books that are really exciting me. And I think that they've done a terrific job with the development of these titles. I think there's been a shift as far as, I'm getting the same number of hard-hitting, amazingly cool titles that I was getting in the previous universe with DC, but they're different. It's just kind of shifted around to which books are my top favorites. That's where books like Aquaman jump to the forefront. Batgirl is, a book that's in the forefront. Batman, it was always there before. Things like this line are really exciting for me. I love that books that I enjoyed before, like Jonah Hex, are still around. I miss some of my favorite titles that were from the previous universe, like Secret Six, for example, which I'm convinced there is a spot for that in the New 52. So that's a title that I'm still going to say, please bring back Secret Six. I would love to see that with Suicide Squad. I want to read the crossover.
Yeah.
Because I think those are two titles that, if they went head-to-head, I think there would be a really interesting thing to see those two titles operating, because they're very different in the way that they present themselves, and I think that would be great, especially because it looks like they could, they're going to go down to 50 titles soon, and there's room to add a couple more titles back into the slot. But this is a book, Constantine, I'm really, really digging. Air Norway, when you see this sequence of events, what a terrific sequence that was in issue 1. Where, you've got Constantine getting poisoned. And this is where I say to myself, okay, make sure before getting on the plane, you go to Starbucks and bring your own drink, because you don't know what the crazy demon stewardess is going to do to you. I love that he caught it, though. I love the edgy way, it was, again, I'm Constantine. He's a bad dude. And I really like that. I feel like that with Constantine, he's a guy that, you're friends with, but you constantly have to justify that friendship. Other people go, how can you even talk to that guy? And you got to say, well, you don't understand. Because you maybe have been with Constantine as a running buddy, and you've seen some of the good things that he does. So you kind of, I feel like with Constantine, you would constantly be an apologist for being a friend with him. And over the years, I've had friends like this, where other friends of mine don't get why I'm friends with them. But, I still would consider that person a friend. Maybe not a best friend, so to speak, but, certainly a person that I would consider a friend if I value meeting up with them. I don't know that I would help John on a case. because your life expectancy is probably not too high. And John, I don't think, would hesitate to throw anybody to the wolves. So I don't know that I would really want to work with the guy, because I think our friendship would have a much shorter lifespan if I did. But I do see him as being somebody where you kind of like do see the good side to him if you really look hard. But there's a lot of bad there too, which is why it's like I like how you said it. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He's Constantine.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one of the DC characters that I enjoy reading. But in that list of, hey, would you like to hang out with this person? No, not at all. Now, if something were freaky going on in the Magic universe, I would call on him, but again, it's that whole, you got to watch what you do and what kind of deal you strike when you're dealing with the Magic universe. And you got to watch it with a guy like Constantine, because you said it exactly. I don't know if I can go on a mission with the guy, because you don't know exactly, your life expectancy drops down, and it's, you could very easily be in red shirt territory that, okay, guess what? You're dead. What? Huh? Hold on. Oh, on top of that, your soul just got, your soul just got sent to hell. Sorry. Wait, John, what are you doing? And that's something that could very easily happen to you. And it's one of those things where I shouldn't be enjoying the book as much as I do, because I do like the dun-da-da hero moments, but there's just something really cool about Constantine. This is a guy who he talked his way out of dealing with the Spectre. That in itself was a holy crud moment. The Spectre came a-calling. The Spectre never walks away, never leaves you alive. He did with Constantine, because Constantine's like, hey, dude, hold on. Yeah, we could do this right now, but you got to think about the consequences of your actions. Do you really want me to go? Do you really want to stop me from preventing these really nasty people from getting this compass? What kind of ramifications will that have for you? And I loved seeing that, because it was just the whole, hey, have I got a deal for you type of suave, slick style that Constantine has. And I was like, holy crud, he's talking his way out of this. No one talks their way out of this. He just pulled it off.
I liked the whole bit with Sargon the Sorceress. I liked seeing the history. We're bringing in Zatara, because I always loved Zatanna's backstory with her dad. And just seeing that there was these magicians that were corrupted, along the way. And, then we had Sargon, who used to be somebody who respected Constantine. Mr. E, Tanarak, this cult, the Cold Flame, being something that you could see somebody like Sargon's daughter manipulating and taking control of, all going for these magical artifacts so they could be the top dog and maybe could accomplish getting, it's, for me, one of the things about the magic verse that, and I think this is true of shows like Buffy and stuff like that too, ultimately the adversaries in them are ones that are in this quest for power, this quest to control it all, to eventually be the one that everybody else bows down to. They take control of realms to get more power. They take control of, little things like this is what's, and I see Constantine trying to stop these things. And is it for his own quest for knowledge? Is it for his own quest for power? Is it to stop others from getting power? His motivations a lot of time are hard to pin down. That's something that I find interesting about the character. I don't know what your experience was with this. Like when I read issue 1, I got to admit, I didn't jump to it right away because I was a fan of the old series. I was kind of like disappointed that they canceled it. I picked up the book because I was interested in reading it. And when I heard about the creative team, I was like, okay, I want to give this book a shot. And I let it go for, it was like midweek. I ended up finally reading it. After I read issue 1, I certainly did not have the same experience with issue 2. Issue 2 I read right away. It was funny how I kind of let it sit back there because I'm kind of like, I'll eventually get to it. And I heard good things. A lot of people were posting in our own, Facebook group saying how much they were digging it. So that bumped it up the stack a little bit more for me. But I still wasn't quite there yet until I actually read it. And it's further proof that, that's where these internet people that condemn a title from a few preview pages and that they barely read, just drive me up a wall. Because this is a great example of a book that, I wasn't sharing that opinion that I was kind of like, I'm kind of waiting on this title. Only because how is that fair for a title that I haven't actually read? When I read this, oh my God, I could not wait for issue 2. And you were the one that actually suggested us talking about this, so I'm guessing you had a similar experience.
Oh, definitely. with me, issue 1 was literally the bottom of the stack. And it was just, I was exactly in the same boat you were. I was curious about it. I liked the character in Justice League Dark. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that should be a pretty cool read. But I had everything else I was reading, everything else I was doing. After I read issue 1, issue 2 jumped to the top of the stack, and to the point where I have a large back log of titles I haven't read just because we've been in the middle of other stuff here. So when the package came with this with number 2, I jumped on that, even though I had previous stuff from the previous week that I still hadn't read yet. Mm-hmm. And with me, I'm kind of I like having all of the 1 week done before I go into the next week. I for some reason, even though the order truly doesn't matter, I still like to make sure, okay, I have this week completely read. Now I can go on to the next week. And it's just my little neurotic, neuroses that I have with my comic book reading. Constantine, I threw the rule out the window and I jumped right into it because I had to read more. Because this was something that from issue 1, I was hooked. Issue 2, I'm like, oh my God, this is hysterical. This is wonderful. This is like, oh my, I can't believe he did that. There was a couple just wow moments that I'm getting from Constantine, and I'm very happy, very excited where this is going to go, and I am eagerly anticipating the future.
Great art choice, too.
Oh, God,
the whole art team, I think, is fantastic for this book. I love this bit at the end of issue 1. Magic. Trick the universe into handing us something we didn't earn. Make people see what we want them to see. Twist time and space. Take it too far and very bad things happen. The sacrifices get costly. You take what you didn't earn, but you pay for it. You always pay for it. And you see him there walking away with the sorry Chris as we see, Chris's fate. And that, though, is to me who Constantine is. He's the guy who makes those decisions because he believes that, I don't know if it's the ends justify the means or, just he's more focused on his reason for doing these things. Because I don't know do you think he, bothers worrying with justification? I don't see him doing that. Does he because I don't get the feeling he's justifying it to himself.
I don't think he's justifying it to himself, but he does, there is that big picture, and that is, I think he is a lot of ends justify the means type of guy. Mm-hmm. Because you even see that with issue 2 where he has to give up the needle. But he's like, okay, I can give up the needle because I'm getting the compass phase. And they need all 3 parts, so I'm okay. And it's just, it's that stick and move style that he has to keep doing. And it's a survival tactic. It's you got to keep going, kind of keep moving, just never stop. And eventually that does catch up to you. And I think that's kind of like a good analogy of the magic universe. Eventually you got to pay the piper. Eventually it's going to come back to you. And that's how Constantine lives his life. He has that constant keep going. Eventually I'm going to pay for this. But right now I'm going to keep moving. Right now I'm going to keep going.
This is the What the Cover month. And how have you been liking that event? I mean, I'm finding a lot of covers that I'm really digging and enjoying. This Constantine one was really great because it had him on issue number 2, dead in the streets laying down there, and you flip it around, at the hands of the Spectre, carried away. Which, again, the Spectre is, a part of the DC mythos that I think is, especially if you're doing the Magic universe, we're seeing more of, and as interactions really are happening a lot more in books like Justice League Dark and in this, and in Phantom Stranger. And it's great to see this character starting to appear in all of these different places, interacting with the right characters. I'm really enjoying how he's being reintroduced into the New 52.
Oh, definitely, completely agree with you on that. And again, Spectre's another character that I have limited knowledge of, but I have a solid comfort with just because what we've seen, where they're doing a really good job of letting us know who the Spectre is, what he's about. And part of it is my previous knowledge on the guy, but part of it is also just how they're laying it out, how they're telling us, okay, this is what's going on. This is who the Spectre is now. And I'm glad we're getting it, and I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with him. And you got to be, for me, with a character, I got to be comfortable to understanding why are they doing what they're doing. I have a lot of times in my head where a story continues on in my head. And if I'm not comfortable with the character, I can't do that. With guys like Constantine, I can do that now. With Spectre, I can do that. Obviously, always with Clark, I can do that. There's characters that I'm so comfortable with that I can continue the story on inside my head. I can notice little stuff, or just take one panel and say, yeah, this probably happened. Now, granted, there's no evidence to say why that would have happened other than just my own head created that little side story off of it. But, give me that comfort. That makes me happy that I'm getting these books, keeps me buying them, and keeps me loyal to the title. And, it's something I'm getting from that.
Yeah. This is one of those titles that I've written really in digging for that reason, especially when we get into issue 2 and we see Constantine continuing his quest. I'm a big fan of this kind of thing, because it's got like a lot of elements of things that I really enjoy. I mentioned Buffy before, where you get that with the supernatural end of it, with facing this big adversary. But then you get like a little bit Raiders of the Lost Arky, with him kind of traveling around the world trying to find the pieces parts of all this. It's a nice hybrid, I think, of a lot of great pop culture, geek pop culture, that goes into Constantine. And I'm loving seeing him jet-setting around, trying to find these artifacts, and there being real dangerous threats there, but Constantine knowing how to play the system and how to narrowly survive. I like the concept of, he's a human. He's going up against some really powerful creatures, and he's only escaping by the skin of his teeth because he happens to have one trick up his sleeve that they're not ready for. And it's the challenge. I like that he walks into situations where he knows this is the crazy way to go about it. Like there's a reference later on to him going back to London. I've got the disc. I lost the needle. I've got the disc. Going back to London to get the lens is suicide. It's like a crazy thing for me to do. They're gonna catch me. I like the challenge. And I mean, that kind of thing, it's because his idea is correct. If I've got the disc, they can't go any further. They need all 3 pieces to make the compass. So his logic is right there, but yet he's going back anyway because he's Constantine. And he needs to do, and I'm excited for the next issue because of it. And there's something about him where there's that part of him where you're like, okay, we get this edge to him, and he's gonna step up, and he's gonna, face the bad guys, and you want to see him win. I still feel you can't call him a hero, but man, do I dig these moments. And again, the art choice, especially when you're going to all these exotic locations, indoor and outdoor locations, where Constantine's being captured to the point where he's being brought to Mr. E, so Mr. E can get the needle, and that whole sequence of events I thought was really, really great. Because, boy, can I tell you something? And he tells him that joke about the blind man who, had a friend who, basically walked out on him. And Constantine disappeared on him the same way. What a great joke. It was, cool to see that all build up. I don't know about you. I didn't see that playing out that way. I loved when we got the visual of Mr. E there with the empty chair. How awesome was that? I thought it was just a well played out moment because I didn't see it. I knew Constantine was going to escape on some level. I didn't see it playing out that way. And that's what I really loved. I loved that I knew, obviously we knew the good guy's going to, or the whatever guy is going to escape. But I liked the way it played out because it was edgy. And I'm like, oh man, that's cool. And I like those moments because, we see heroes escape all the time. But when you see something that feels fresh and a little different and a little edgy, you like it.
You know what I liked about that scene? One, I agree with you. The whole joke thing, that had me laughing because he's sitting there, and even after he drops the punchline, the bartender says, "Your pal where?" "Yes." And Mr. E doesn't get the joke because he can't see that Constantine's no longer there. I thought that had me just laughing out loud. I was like, oh, that's great. But I love the fact that Constantine did lose the needle. The bad guys got the needle from him. Mm-hmm. And you'd think about it, if you kind of went a traditional, quote-unquote, traditional comic book story, the hero would have somehow slipped the needle back and he'd still have the needle on him. The bad guys wouldn't have the piece. The hero wouldn't have run to save his own skin, figuring I can just get the second piece to it and I'll figure out the needle later. I like the fact that we got that moment from Constantine because that's a very realistic, a very natural way for a person to deal with the situation.
What do you think about the Spectre's costume? Because, after this, when Constantine escapes, he goes after the dial, which makes sense. He's like, okay, I lost the needle. What am I going to do next? I've got to stop them by getting my hands on the dial. So he heads there first, figuring that I've got enough information to put me one step ahead of them. And I like that, where he's like, okay, lost here, but I can lose the battle. Can I win the war? And that there's something to be said about that. But what do you think about the Spectre's new costume? Obviously very classic looking, but at the same time, it's got a, New 52. How does it feel to you? I know your experience with the Spectre is a little bit more limited, but, you knew the Crispus Allen Spectre. Did you, I know you saw from the DC short, the Corrigan Spectre. Did you get to do any reading with the Corrigan Spectre at all? I don't remember.
Not really. Yeah, I think maybe I read one, but if that much. I have very little Corrigan knowledge and him dealing with the Spectre and him as a Spectre. So it's, Crispus Allen was my, Spectre, and I'm cool with the look. I think it's the Spectre. He looks equally creepy. There is some holy crud moments with him, and as I said, I'm comfortable with the Spectre. Even though I've got very little exposure and very little history with him, I get where he's coming from. I see why he did why he does what he does, and even why he let Constantine go. I thought that was a cool way of handling it. This was, again, it was a beautiful swerve. I had no idea where they were going to go with this or how they were going to do this. He talked his way out of dealing with the Spectre. No one does. Constantine did.
The Spectre recently appeared in the very cool Phantom Stranger series, and for anybody that's really enjoying this magic verse, I can't recommend enough reading his appearance in Phantom Stranger, because I feel like they're developing a backstory of the Spectre gradually through his appearances and titles, and I like getting introduced to him that way. It's a little different, it's and I'm enjoying the fact that because he's appeared in these magic books, I'm getting to know a little bit more about the Spectre along the way. Is it necessary to have read that book in order to be enjoying this? No. But I think it's, first, Phantom Stranger, I think is a great book, so I do want to highly recommend it. If you're enjoying this, I think you should be reading Phantom Stranger. I think it's right in your wheelhouse. Are you feeling the same way about Phantom Stranger? I think
yes.
That book's outstanding.
Yeah.
So it's a book I definitely want to recommend to people. And I'm surprised at how much I'm digging that as well. This magic, and it's funny, I think when I ran through the magic books, I don't know if I mentioned Phantom Stranger. And if I didn't, that's definitely an omission I want to fix right now because I'm really loving that title. I'm glad that with Frankenstein being gone, I feel like Phantom Stranger is giving us another book in that universe that I'm really liking the magic world. But we get to see the Spectre with everything that Constantine's done. And I'm talking about the things we've seen him do in the New 52 so far. The Spectre going after him makes sense.
Yeah.
He's done these horrible things, in the name of the ends justify the means. And the Spectre's the spirit of redemption coming back after you. It's like, you've done this. I'm God's vengeance coming after you. And Constantine makes an interesting point. This Trinity War is coming. And these are the people that are going to be aligning against you. They know how to potentially stop you. Do you want to stop them? Or do you want me to take the hit and do it? Because I can do the things that you can't. So I love the Spectre saying, you speak the truth. You're not, he isn't apologizing for anything he's done. He's saying, this is what I can do. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to deliver to you. That's what I mean by, I think there's regret there. There's not remorse. Because when he's having that conversation with the Spectre, there's not a hint of remorse. There is regret. Because I do feel like he regrets what happened to Chris. I don't feel he has remorse for it, though. And in that moment, I think that's why he's able to convince the Spectre, because he doesn't have the remorse. Spectre's like, he's right. What am I going to do? I'll get you later.
And your dog, too.
Yeah, that's right. But you're right. And I loved how that played out. I liked that moment. I'll get you later. Yep. I got your number, fella. Wow, it was just a great title. Is there anything else you want to say about this book? I think it's amazing. I'm really happy with the way Constantine's been delivered so far, and I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, this is a recommend read for people, especially if you've had a little bit of reading of some of the Magic universe and you weren't sure about it. Pick this up. This is some really good stuff going on.
I like the cliffhanger. I like what's waiting for him in London.
Oh.
We got these.
Again, how the heck, how does he survive this stuff? How does he keep moving? It is something that does impress me that he just bob and weave, stick and move. Okay. It's that whole analogy of a shark. A shark never stops moving.
Yeah.
Even when it's sleeping, it's still moving. Constantine never stops moving. He's always going forward. He's always pressing on. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really cool title. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Well, let's go into Action Comics number 19. The writer is Andy Diggle, with pencils by Tony S. Daniel, inks by Bat, colors by Tomu Morey, Tomeu Morey, letters by Carlos M. Mangual, with covers by Daniel Bat and Morey. Associate editor is Ricky Puritan, group editor Eddie Berganza, and of course, Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
I gotta tell you, man, I geeked out at the initial pages of this issue because I love the moments where we get to see a year ago. We get to see some flirtation between Clark and Lois where the two of them are in this situation in the Middle East where she's connecting with him on some level and actually seeing him for his potential of all the facets of who he is. Because I think Lois kind of gets Clark. Even though I know that, Clark's Superman and all that, and she doesn't know that he's Superman, but I think she kind of gets that there's more to Clark and constantly tries to figure out who this guy is and what he's all about, but also likes, the whole farm boy thing and that bit. I think there's every aspect of him, but I think she gets that he's something more than how he's presented at times. And I really enjoy this banter between the two of them and seeing that. I'm loving to death the Superman-Wonder Woman relationship right now, but when I read stuff like this, I so want to see this go here eventually. It's got to go here eventually. And I want to see him get married, doggone it. I want to see that happen again, because I'm a believer that you can make the super marriage work. Anyone who says that you can't, I think good writers just know how to make it work. And I think the marriage between the two of them is interesting. Because to me, that is, I think Superman being able to get, I know it's something that came out of the Lois and Clark TV show and they went and did it for that reason, but I think that it worked for so long in comics and worked so well. I never thought it made the character uninteresting. I think your storytelling has to be interesting around it. I think great writers can make storytelling interesting around a married couple. And this relationship can be interesting again. I want to see the build to it, though. I'm anxious to see them date. I'm anxious to see them go through all that after the whole Wonder Woman thing.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
I'm glad to have that have like a nice long run, because this is working for me. I'm into this. This was a great sequence. And seeing why Clark had to walk away in that moment and make that decision, and that was hard for him because he felt it too. It adds a lot to what we saw originally in this run. To me, I got to be honest with you, this issue in particular I went back and reread some of the initial issues to this series. And this, for some reason, because it was these few pages were a prequel to the whole thing, got me a lot more interested in stuff that went on earlier. I really appreciated that they didn't throw everything that happened in this continuity in the last, little over a year of this title out the window. They embraced it and said, here's something people probably want to know. What led Lois to meet John Carroll? And what did that look like for Clark? Why was Clark jealous when we saw him there? And why hadn't he acted on it before? We get this moment here that, for me, answered a lot of questions. I don't know if you had these questions. I had these questions. It answered a lot of them there. I love when it's done in storytelling like this. Give us time. Eventually fill us in with the continuity gaps and things that we want to know about the history of the character. I don't know, gaps isn't the right word, but the history parts, the continuity parts that we do want to know about these guys. Fill us in the story. I want to know about this stuff. This is a part of the history I wanted to see, and I'm glad we got to see it.
Amen. Amen. I'm sitting here just nodding my head in agreement with you as you're going on. This is the kind of stuff I wanted from Action Comics. I want this, what happened in the earlier, before the current stuff. Keep Superman present day, keep the new Superman title present day. Give me Action Comics. Give me these past stories. Fill in the continuity gaps. everything you said about wanting to see, just that moment where she met, John. See that moment where, Clark had his chance right there. They're both looking. His glasses are down. They're eye to eye. They have that tender moment where you're sitting there just watching it, screaming, "Kiss her, you idiot! Kiss her! What are you waiting for? You got to green light. Go, go, go!" And he has to walk away because he's got a job to do, because Superman's got to do what he's got to do. And I love those moments where even afterwards he's like, "It wouldn't work, Clark. It wouldn't work." Yeah, keep telling yourself that. He's sitting there kicking himself, and it adds to the stuff that we've already seen where we see the jealousy. We see those moments where he's like, I had, because, going through his head, he's like, I had my chance. I had that moment where if I had just said, you know what, I'm going to think about Clark Kent for a moment. I'm going to be a regular, everyday guy. I'm going to be a normal person. I'm going to pursue this really cool, woman, and I'm going to be happy. No, duty first. He is Superman. He has to do his duty. He has to do what's right.
Hold on, though.
I loved seeing that.
But there's more to it than that. And this page where first of all, I'm a huge fan of the armored suit now, because oh my gosh, does this look cool? But all this time I've spent with Lois fighting for truth, for justice, but she can never know the truth about me, about Superman. I care about her too much to make her a target for my enemies. Wow. Now, my opinion about Lois is, first of all, I think there's something noble about Superman thinking that way. But Lois is a stronger person than that. And Lois can take care of herself. And that's something that I've always loved about the strength of the Lois Lane character. And I'm anxious for Superman to get to know that. To start to realize that just because she doesn't have superpowers, she has a strength of her own that's delivered. And we start seeing that in these issues. The one thing I'm embracing about this issue, and what I really love about it, I think a talented writer, when they embrace things that have happened before, find clever ways to work it into their storytelling and tell us something more about it, make something from the past more meaningful. This guy has done a terrific job in this issue, and the whole creative team, of all of a sudden taking a run that I was before. I kind of had trouble getting into, the whole vibe of what was going on in this Superman title. I think there's been a lot of great creative that have worked on this book. There's been really good issues, but I never got that kind of, heck yeah. This has made I kind of go back and go, you know what? Wow, this is making me really appreciate everything that came before in a way that, maybe I didn't understand it before in the way that he's making me understand it. I think that's really cool. He's filling in a lot of the pieces that I just really needed. I'm very excited about this title with this issue. They did a really, really good job. I should say this title with this issue, how this title is intersected with Superman. It's funny how I'm attaching this to the Superman book and everything that came before when it's really Action Comics. Yeah. But the reason why I'm doing that is because this was handled so well here. It really has connected those two books in a way that they haven't been previously. I like that.
Oh, God, yeah. And I love the fact that we're going to find out what happened to Lex and everything. This is, continuation of that Lex story. Mm-hmm. When they introduced him, he has the scar on his face. Well, where'd that come from? Well, this story arc's going to show you all that. This is what's going to tell you what happened, that backstory. How did Clark, capture Lex? What's going on? What was everything, the whole backstory behind what we've already seen when they had their introduction. I love how they're doing these kind of time jumping and hopping around, which if you think back to when the show first started, that kind of stuff confused me. That kind of stuff was like, I don't know about that. Now I eat that up. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. And one of the things that amazes me is these are different creators who are following the same type of feel. This is a completely different creative team than what we saw before, but they're connecting to what the past happened. They're connecting to what we already know, filling in the gaps. And I loved seeing that type of cooperation, just that respect, understanding, just that talented, the talent to say, okay, this is the continuing story. This is what happened. And it's one of those things that keeps me, excited for a longevity of a title.
Do you have the experience I do with the armored suit where it depends on who the artist and our team, I should say, because I want to throw in the inker, the colorist, because I think the color tones, when I'm looking at this page where, he's over the cargo ship and you get to see that full body shot of him standing there with that just look on his face like, I'm going to stop this. But you get a great full shot of the armor suit there. I find that with the armor suit, sometimes when I see artists draw it, there's something about it. I'm like, I enjoy it. It's good. But then when I see something like this, I'm like, I really like this. There's something about the color tone work. I talked about this when Nicholas Scott did it. Just how something about how like that whole creative when that came together. There was something about her majestic view of it. It worked really well for me. This is another creative team that they've really got. When I like it, it feels like more of a hybrid of what I loved about the classic suit here, and the armored suit. If I'm making sense there, like it feels Superman. Where sometimes when I see the armored suit, it just doesn't. It almost feels too armory. I know that's a very strange thing to say, but here it's sleeker. It's not. It's so in your face that this is like this extra thick battle armor. It looks more form fitting here. And I think that's where I'm really finding that I'm enjoying the suit when it doesn't feel like he's wearing, like you can almost see if you take a look at his arm, and I know you can almost see like a vein in his muscle there.
Yeah.
Little things like that where it doesn't look like the suit is so overpowering the body because he's Superman, and I think that's what I got to feel still that this is Superman and that the suit has a backstory and a history that's Kryptonian. I dig that. I think that's a cool vibe. But it doesn't need to be like long johns and like, a down-filled coat layers on Superman. This needs to be something that does feel more form-fitting. So this styling of it, I really think that this art team really gets how to do the suit. I like it here. I think that's really just a very good look for it. And I think there's something to be said for that. You've got to keep it form-fitting. Because you can see the ab look and all that kind of thing with it. I think that's important. I don't know if you get the same. I don't know if you're getting the same vibe from that I am, or if you kind of see it differently. And that's cool if you do. This is the way I like to see the suit.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, this is for me when they first started drawing the suit, I kind of liked a armor feel to it. I liked something a little bit, I wanted it to look like it wasn't from Earth. Mm-hmm. And I'm still getting that feel with this, even though this is more conform, more tight fitting. This doesn't look like something his mom sewed for him.
Right.
And that's what I need to have. I know it's the classic story, and I do love that classic story where it was Ma Kent who sewed his first suit for him, and all the history behind that. And I do enjoy that, and I appreciate it, and I do like that fact of it. But for me, I really enjoy the fact that this doesn't look like it's from Earth. Now, whether it's more heavier, thicker, bulkier armor, or whether it's this sleek style, it's got to look like it's not from this world. And we're getting that from here. And this is, again, kudos to the full art team because the colorist really, made it look metallic, but it doesn't look like solid sheets of steel. This looks like a folding type of metallic. This is more of and that's what adds to the futuristic and off-worldly properties that you could have a metal that conforms to the human body. That's as flexible as cloth, but is still strong as steel. And I get those properties from these images from what we've seen on this, and that's something I appreciate on it.
Did that story still happen to you?
What?
The classic story with Ma Kent making the suit. And I guess here's what I'm saying. With Flashpoint, I don't know if do you interpret Flashpoint the way that I do, and you don't have to. This is how I, as a fan, and this is my interpretation. I'm a fan when I see time shift stories that I look at them as threads, and I looked at what happened with Pandora in Flashpoint. As we took this universe, and this universe, and put them together to make something new in order to resolve that problem, the choice that she made, which we're obviously going to see more of as this Trinity War comes in and stuff like that. But I look at it as that thread still happened. Like, that all happened to these characters. Those stories are still valid. They're still, they're pre-Flashpoint, yes, but because of Flashpoint, they're still connected to this world. It's just that they're, the thread converged into this new world now. So I guess to me, when you talk about that classic story, I love it with the same fondness you're talking about. And I still feel it happened, which I guess and the reason why I'm even mentioning this, I think for longtime fans who are probably like, Sean, how can you say you're a longtime fan and you're liking all this? For me, that resolution is pretty pivotal to me in my enjoyment of the New 52 and where it's gone, because I feel like these stories I've read my whole life still happened, or the stories that I guess that it all depends on how you looked at what happened when Byrne took over, and then we've had the different crises that have brought things back in from the Silver Age and stuff. To me, that's how I resolved it, and that's how it works for me, and I think that the story supports that for me. Is that how you view things, or is it in your mind those stories, they did happen at one point in another universe, that universe is closed, this is the new universe, and this is where I'm looking right now? How does it work for you?
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at those stories that never happened in this universe. Mm-hmm. In this universe, Ma Kent and Pa Kent never knew that Clark became Superman. They died when Clark was, his prom, the night of his senior prom. So they never got to see him, graduate high school, graduate college. They never got to see him first become Superman, start doing good, and do all of that stuff, that those classic stories that we get from Superman. They were never around for his death and his return. It's, I look at it that door is closed. That is a completely different universe, different entity. This is the universe here. This is the universe now. When Flashpoint came, it changed everything. And we're going to see there are some commonalities to some of the stuff. Like, as I said, Superman died. Superman came back. But the whole story behind it isn't exactly what we saw. And same thing with Batman and Bane. The whole story isn't exactly what we saw. Right. There's little tweaks. There's little twists and changes to the story. But, you still have, I still have in my head the stories that happened. But in this universe, that never occurred.
I like this bit with the war machines that he finds that are, powered by humans. Yeah. Listen to me. I have no quarrel with you. But these people, all people, are under my protection. Power down, and let's talk. I love that he comes at it from a point of peace, but he also comes at it from a point of, I tried to be reasonable. I didn't throw the first punch, but you better believe I'll throw the last. Oh my gosh, was that a majestic moment. I got to tell you just how much I really enjoyed the art in this. This felt like really powerful Superman. I really enjoyed the take on this. I enjoyed the dialogue. This was really a well-written issue with those moments, because these are those moments with Superman. I was like, yes! Get in there, Superman. Because I liked it because I got to see the peaceful Superman where he's coming at it from a show of strength. I'm standing here telling you, I don't mean you any harm. But you come after these people, you better believe you're going to deal with me. Because I'm Superman. That's Superman to me. That is what he's all about. In that moment, he's sitting there. That's why we used to have those, I know we had those reluctant leader debates, but that's a moment where I look at him being a leader. He's being a world leader right there and saying, this is the way it is. I'm Superman. And, you're just going to understand it. But I like that he comes at it as a diplomat from a show of power, because he can back it up. Really great. Just a beautiful visual sequence. The dialogue just matched. This is the kind of Superman storytelling I want to read. I'm really enjoying this.
And my God.
Yeah.
This talking visual stuff, this right here is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Artwork and layout, everything. I love the non-traditional panels. You get your full page spread, but then you get the little side panels that show the extra stuff. The action sequences going on when they're deploying, the Hellstreak missiles, and he's just blasting them out of the sky. I loved seeing that. I got that feel of movement and motion from a comic book. This is two-dimensional, but I'm able to see everything going through. I'm able to hear the explosions. I'm able to hear the wind whistling through the cape as he's flying along, as he flies through the one war machine. This is some cool action stuff that's going on. But on top of that, you get these classic Superman moments that you mentioned. This is Superman. This is a great issue. I was reading this and I was excited. I was like, yes, yeah, hoorah! I'm high-fiving myself, and this is something that I'm like, you know what? This is an issue that will make me loyal to this creative team. I will read more of Andy Diggle stuff. I will, read more of Tony Daniels stuff. I will, follow the full create team, full art team, everybody.
Well, at least, to other books.
Other books. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I will pick up other books now. I would even probably consider jumping universes, because they did the character, they did my favorite character the way I want him done. right here, this is the kind of cool Superman stuff. This is the stuff that gets me excited. I was always, I always was kind of like down on myself because right now Batman's putting out such great stuff that I'm more excited about Batman. I'm enjoying Superman. I'm like, yeah, this is some cool stuff, but I wasn't as fired up. I wasn't a Superman guy. This stuff right here made me a Superman guy again.
Oh yeah.
This was this kind of thing that said, this is why Superman's cool. Look at this stuff. This is awesome.
Testify. I agree with you. This is a great issue. I was really pumped up reading this one. And at the end, I'm like, wait, what? This isn't going to be the writer? What are you, crazy? I love Andy Diggle. I'm a big fan of Andy Diggle's work in Vertigo and DC and throughout comics. He's a writer I tend to follow. Did you read Green Arrow Year One? I know you've been a big Green Arrow fan.
Yeah. I read Green Arrow 1, and I think that's probably the only thing of his I've read.
Okay.
I'm going to seek him out. I'm going to find other stuff by him just because. I'm like, I got to, this guy, I like his writing style. I like how he does stuff.
I've got a huge recommendation. He did an amazing Adam Strange mini that I can't recommend enough. That was really, really well written. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, I highly recommend it. He's a great writer. He's somebody that I tend to follow from project to project because he's won me over on his writing. And I had a feeling I was excited when I heard Andy Diggle was going to be writing Action Comics. And it's funny how he has this ability to surprise me. And I really feel I don't want to diminish the art team because I think the whole choice here worked really well. So I don't know. You and I talked about beforehand, how do we talk about that? Because the reality is you and I don't know a whole lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, as far as we hear the same news that everybody listening to this hears, as far as somebody's no longer going to be on the book and, there's all kinds of rumors that have gone on. And my personal take on that is always, especially at this stage in my comic fandom, I love certain characters and I love reading certain characters. I get excited for creators to have great runs with those characters. And I love it when a creator who I haven't seen before on that character gets a chance to put their stamp on the character. So I get excited for that. My take is whenever I hear news that a creator is no longer going to be on a book, especially when it's a creator I'm already a fan of, my first thought is I need to know where that creator's going. I want to know what they're going to be on so I can keep reading them. And then I also want to know on the second part of the question is who's going to be coming on this book that I really enjoy. So it's two-sided in the sense that because there's a loyalty I have, like you're mentioning, to those creators. I want to follow them. A book I'm not reading, Red Sonja, right now. Gail Simone's going to be writing Red Sonja this summer. So it's coming up soon. That's going to be from Dynamite. So it's a brand new series. It's kicking off with issue number 1 with her writing it. So I follow Gail Simone to anything she does, anywhere she does it. So, doing Red Sonja, I'm like, okay, I'm not reading this now. Make me a believer. And she will. And that's what we're talking about here. Diggle's one of those guys. All right, Andy Diggle's on. I need an Andy Diggle book. Peter David's been one of those writers that I tend to follow to other projects that he does because he's delivered for me. Have you read, it's funny, we just did our last episode, Star Trek. Did you read, and I meant to ask you this on this one, have you read any of Peter David's Star Trek novels?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I can't recommend his writing on Star Trek enough, and I'm going to jump back into Superman right after this, but just because we're talking about writers who go to different projects and we end up following them, Peter David was one of those guys from Hulk that was my first real kind of exposure to reading him regularly. Then his DC work on Aquaman, Young Justice, and stuff like that, and Supergirl. Became just a huge fan of him. But he was doing, I started picking up his Star Trek novels, and boy, is he a great writer with those. I follow creators that way. And I follow characters too. And I think I'm a hybrid of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I get excited for, the potential of new creators and what they're going to do. I'm really sad that this team is not getting more of a run because of just what a home run this issue was. And that we kind of talked about talking about this before we'd read the issue. We said we should probably talk about this before. For me, it was before I had a chance to read the issue. After reading the issue, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this. And what timing is great. On Superman's anniversary, we're talking about this issue, which I think is just great. Now, I loved the whole bit when, Superman finally takes down these machines, and he's hit with, like, this sonic device that starts messing with his head, and he sees Jimmy.
Yeah.
Now, how did you take that? Was that because of the disorientation from the machine that was making him have that mental image? The machine didn't put that image in his head, did it? Or how did you take that?
See, at first I thought it was the machine that did it. And it was kind of like a twofold, attack. That it would kind of, distort you. It was kind of like a defensive mechanism. But, it was like, give you the image of somebody you're not going to want to beat up. Kind of a protection. And I'm not exactly sure how that would have come out, how that would have come about, though. That's what had me going, okay, where did this come from? What was this? Him just, kind of, being a little bit punch drunk because he got rocked really hard? Or was it actually the armor itself that created, the defensive mechanism?
Because there's nothing there. His response is, I know that couldn't have actually been Jimmy. Got hit harder than I thought, but someone doesn't want these men to talk. And that's when he blew up. So, he knows it wasn't Jimmy, but... Oof, I don't know. That it was a cool sequence. I liked that I was questioning it too. I do think now that he was hit so hard that it kind of put him in that place. Maybe because there was some similarities with that guy on enough level that it made him seem like Jimmy. I don't know, but that's kind of the way I'm taking it. I just thought it was interesting. And I don't know that you're wrong in how you're believing, but there's nothing in the story, they don't expand enough on it. And I kind of like some things. It's kind of fun that they're left vague, and we can just kind of be left thinking. It's good geeky discussion.
Yeah.
That, I don't know that I ever really need this spelled out, because it's kind of a fun thing to geek out and debate.
Because I was also thinking that later on we're going to see more of this. We're going to see this, they'll get the deeper explanation on it. Right now, Clark is thinking, okay, I just got rocked really hard. Well, the next issue or a couple issues from now, we're going to see that, no, it wasn't that Clark got rocked. It was because of the armor doing this. It was because of something else, and we're going to see a whole. This was like the teaser image, just a little bit of hint for something down the road.
What do you think of Lex? And I know you're a huge Lex fan, but here's what I'm saying. I feel like Lex, what they've done with Lex in the New 52 is taken the best elements of him throughout his history and combined them together to make a definitive Lex Luthor. Where, they've taken elements of the classic scientist version of him, of the businessman version of him, elements of, the confidence of the character that we've known before, and also his feelings directly about Superman. They've kind of combined all of them together and turned him into Super Lex. And I don't mean that in a way that they've superpowered him in a way that's... I feel like they've made, in my mind, this moment right now when I'm reading this, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I see as a lot of the core traits of what I love about Lex Luthor. I loved every bit of this because I thought she was talking to him, and I didn't think in a way where he was incarcerated or, when I saw the bars and stuff like that, I loved the twist of... and then will you let me go? I'm like, what? How cool was that? I don't think she's gonna make it.
Yeah,
just a great moment. I loved this.
And just her analysis of him was absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
This was one of those where I read it and reread it multiple times. I was like, this is just absolutely so perfect. I love the fact that she's breaking everything down, saying exactly what it is. In my professional opinion, a sociopath, a psychotic megalomaniac, quite possibly the most dangerous man on the planet. Sir. I love the fact that she put that "sir" on the end there just because she's like, hey, I'm calling him a psychopath. I'm calling him psychotic. I'm calling him absolutely dangerous. But I got to watch what I say. I don't want to call him an idiot. I got to be respectful. So let me throw that "sir" in there. I love that.
That whole playing with his DNA and putting that little tiny death machine in there and the way that played out with Superman at the end, what a great cliffhanger that was. I've got an infection and it's spreading. And I like how it's kind of breaking down the armor suit in that area because of the way that it's forming around his body. What a great visual that was. The beast within. What a great cliffhanger. Just an amazing, amazing issue. I really enjoyed that aspect of the whole thing.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, this is a 2-page spread that looks absolutely wonderful. And I am curious with, creative changing, How are they going to continue? Do they have like the outline? Do they have the notes? Do they know where this was supposed to go? Or is a new creative team just completely just taking this and running their own direction? That's what I want to know.
Things to come. I love that we still haven't seen the payoff. He's going to Krypton, right? Is that what that suit is?
Yeah, that's the suit he had in Krypton.
In the Zero? I like that suit. Do you dig that?
Oh, yeah. It's the black and silver suit. It's got a cool look to him, so I'm not going to knock it. I do like the blue and red, the bright colors, but you know what? If you need to kind of go a little bit more stealth, if you need to change your style up, you can't go wrong with black. It's a good color.
You know what I like about that? It kind of, in sort of a weird way, it's kind of a hybrid hearkening back to the suit that I really liked. I liked Death and Return of Superman when we finally got to see Superman back and he was wearing that black suit for a little bit. I didn't want to see it, like similar to what you're saying. I didn't want to see him adopt that suit, but I liked that it had the big S out there, so you know who the guy is, and there's that kind of iconic look about him. But there was something about the purpose of that suit that I really enjoyed. I like that this suit harkens to like an anticipation of an upcoming storyline. That's stuff that I really enjoy. Build me some anticipation. Get me excited for that. This issue just really had all the right beats to it. The pacing was really nice. The artwork was really spectacular. It felt very Superman for me. And there was some great character story development from him and Lois, which I really enjoyed. It's everything that just says Superman to me. Just a really great first outing from this creative team. And as sad as I am about them leaving, I'm more excited for, I don't know how many issues they're on. Is it the next issue's it? I think, right?
I think so.
But I'm really excited for it. What a great first issue. So if this ends up being a two-parter, I'm excited to read this two-parter. And that's amen, kudos to this creative team.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
How's it going, guys? Sean Jim. It's Brandon calling again out of New Orleans. I actually got a kind of weird call today. I'm kind of in a weird place with DC. I'm usually pretty positive up with you guys. I'm wondering what's going on over there, man, with all the changes they got going on with the Green Lantern. I'm kind of concerned that they don't know where they want to go right now. It's got me worried about my universe, actually, especially, like the Batman titles. They seem to, they keep canceling books. I, Vampire is another one I found out, just ended on the chopping block. And that one really kind of hit me because I've been following that one from the beginning. It's one of my my dabbles into the strange world that I've loved. And I know we're getting some new content like Constantine and stuff like that. I haven't checked it out yet, but I guess I've never really been too into Constantine, the character. And I don't know what they're doing. They've got the writers that seemed pretty ambitious going forward with the Green Lantern title. They had a whole idea. I guess they sounded like they had cut out with that universe with the writer that was going to take on the Red Lanterns and the Green Lantern Corps, and he's jumped off board. And then they had Tony Daniel jump off board the Superman title, and you're getting another title now with Batman and Superman, and it seems to be their first meeting, which is it's cool. I love that stuff. The buddies meeting up, but I just don't know where they're going with it, because especially being in the past, and we all know that we're getting Batman Year Zero with Scott Snyder now, which is also going to take part in the past, which I'm excited for. I love again, but it's familiar territory, and all the other titles like Nightwing and Batgirl, they're going to be focusing out of Gotham City. So it seems like for the next year, we're going to be out of the present in the New 52. And it just seems kind of weird to me now, because we did this New 52 thing for new stories, and we're coming on board for a new universe. And now that we seem to be hitting the stride with it, we had Deaths of the Family, we had Court of Owls, where we were going full steam ahead. And now it seems to be jolting to a halt and going backwards, especially, like I said, with the Green Lantern titles. Jeff Jones was doing some great things over there. And I don't want to cut off the new writers before they jump on board, but it just seems, especially with one jumping off of that universe, there's a lot of shakeup, and I'm really concerned about it. I want to know how do you guys feel, and what are your thoughts about it? Especially, like I said, with my favorite part of the universe being the Batman universe. The main title that everybody, of course, loves is the Batman title, and it's going to be in the past. You've got the new story that's going to be set in the past. Of course, you're still going to have Detective and the Dark Knight, which I'm so glad have gotten so much better, but I don't know where they're going to be going forward with that one, if they're going to be kind of halting it too, because it just seems like they're kind of pausing the universe and trying to figure out where they're going, at least from my perspective, and it really worries me. But I don't know, maybe this is all something to do with the Trinity Wars coming up. I don't know. Speculations are not my strong suit, but I'm really worried about my company right now, and I want to know what you guys think. Do you have any concerns? Because I know you're pretty positive on most things, and like I said, I like to try and stay pretty positive, but at the moment, it just seems to have been a lot of things going on at DC that they don't know where they want to go, and so they're halting their main universe in the Batman titles until I guess they can figure it out and go forward from there. What are your thoughts? Anyway, guys, great job on the show, and I'll talk to you later.
That's actually a really common question that we get on the show is when announcements come out and news come out about behind-the-scenes stuff, how do we feel about that? Here's part of the thing. I've learned since I was a kid that when there's changes in the universe, I'll go back to the class. I know I threw out this Man of Steel story that John Byrne did years ago. The reason why I throw that out there is because that was a huge change at the time for Superman. And we didn't have kind of the internet speculation that we have today with it. So it was just comic shop talk. And, the question at that time was mainly how are people feeling then when they read it? So I learned, I guess, as a kid to, when new things happen and new writers come on, to read the story first and then decide how I feel. Let's go back to when the New 52 started. When the New 52 started, there was going to be a major shift in the universe, which led to a lot of creative changes. Books being canceled or being reimagined in a way that caused a shift. Now, here's what happened for me with that. I'm still loving the same amount of DC titles that I loved before. When I say loving, I'm talking about my top tier amount of titles, because the way books work for me, they work into like 3 different categories. I have the blow my mind away, fantastic top-tier books, which are the books I'm talking about right now. I have the middle ground books, which are books that they're good, they're enjoyable reads. And then I have books where I'm digging reading them, but they aren't grabbing me on the same level as the other ones. And they're not bad books. It may be just that arc, where I'm reading that arc, I'm kind of like, this is a good arc. I can kind of wait on it. And, if a couple issues pile up, great. And, I'll eventually catch up to it. And I usually enjoy when I catch up to it. But if I had to cut down on my reading, those would be the books I'd start with. So it's not that they're bad books. They're just, and they might be somebody else's favorite title. What happened when the New 52 started is those books shifted. It's my favorite top-tier books. Some of them are the same ones as before. You mentioned Scott Snyder's Batman. Well, I loved his Detective Comics run, so when he jumped on Batman, it was kind of a natural transition. But that meant that Batman was the title. But then books that he was doing like Swamp Thing and stuff like that, I started to get really, really interested. I'm a fan of Gail Simone, so then Batgirl's, knocking it out of the park, and I'm digging that book. But, those are shifts. Aquaman, was like this amazing thing that came, I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere. I wanted this Aquaman since Blackest Night, when Mira was taking center stage, and we got to see him back again in Brightest Day. So this is something that I expected and wanted, but it was great to have it pay off on the level where we're getting that. And Justice League, is at an amazing level. But those shifts happen from time to time, and books will do that. Cancellations, those are kind of a tricky thing. First of all, iVampire, why is it being canceled? Sales numbers. I mean, that's why those books get canceled. I love iVampire too, so I'm with you in the sense that I'm not happy about that book being canceled. I'm glad they put it out, though, for a lot of the reason that you're talking about, because it's a great read, and if they hadn't put it out, I wouldn't have had a chance to have an opportunity with that title. So I'm really digging it. So I get your point there. And when that happens, when a book that I'm enjoying is canceled, I'm going to go back to a series that I dug that I don't know if a lot of people here did. A couple of them. I really liked the series The Shield when DC had acquired those characters. And it was a short-lived series, but the artwork was amazing, and the story was really great. And, it was really, they incorporated the art style in a way where I felt like I was inside the head of the character, and it just was really different. I really enjoyed, they did a new launch on Vigilante. And these were titles that, they sold in smaller numbers, but they were really interesting, unique books to me. And I guess it kind of fits into this iVampire category. So I'm always sad when those are canceled, but I've learned for a long time, and Manhunter is another one I'll throw out there, that were titles that I think had a fan following that were really devoted to the series, but it never caught on to the mainstream fans. And that just kind of happens from time to time, so those books get canceled. The changes behind the scenes, particularly you mentioned Action Comics and the Green Lantern books, I'm with you on that. That stuff bothers me only because I'm worried about, first of all, where those creators, because I was interested in seeing them, and we talk about Andy Diggle on this one, so actually this is a very appropriate timing-wise. We talk about his first issue on Action Comics, and I'm really sad to see him not going further on that series other than it looks like maybe these couple issues that are coming up. But I really enjoyed what he did for his initial offering. With Tony Daniel on art, I think it was really a very satisfying read. So I don't know, when that kind of stuff happens, I'm, first of all, curious to where those creators are going to go because they've delivered something for me that excites me. And then second of all, it's who are they going to put on the book to make sure the book works? And there's creative teams on there that really, have a direction for it going forward. I don't pretend to know everything that goes on behind the scenes in comics. I'm a fan. I want to read the books, and I want to read quality books. My hope is that whatever decision they make doesn't destroy Action Comics, and that I have an opportunity to read the creators that left that book that are going somewhere else. So it's kind of a twofold thing for me on that, just because I care about the book and I care, about, the character, but I also care about the creators. So I'm kind of, as I mentioned, I'm kind of a hybrid person that way. So that's kind of where I fall on that one. The Bat books, I actually don't have an issue with it taking place in the past, because since the New 52 has started, a lot of people have been, including myself, have been questioning what exactly is part of Batman's history, and we're going to get some of that. And this is a story that Snyder's always wanted to tell. If you get worried about the Scott Snyder book taking place in the past and think that that's some kind of crazy lack of confidence in the New 52, read some of the interviews online with Snyder about this storyline and why he's doing it and what it is for him. And I think you'll get a lot more confident in that. I don't think it's an issue of there being something or they're losing their way. I was a big fan of, if you take a look at the classic Batman Year One storyline, that took place in the main Batman title. And when that was going on, that put that book, in the past for the issues that it took place in. This sounds like it's a story that Snyder's always wanted to tell, and that, I think, was one of the edicts of the New 52, is to be able to tell unique and interesting new stories about these characters. So, I don't have a problem with a story in the past. I don't feel that it always has to be present day. And actually, I would think because we're in the New 52 now, they never do that, that limitation to me would be really harmful to what I think any comic company should be doing, and that's delivering creative stories that are driven by, hey, wow, will this knock the socks off of the fans? And that really should be a part of it. And will it do something moving forward with the character? Jeff Johns did a series of Secret Origin titles, and what they were is they took place in the main title. And you might have read some of these, so if I'm being redundant to you, I apologize. But for anybody listening, just so they know what I'm talking about, they took place in the main title. They took place in the character's past. But what they did was they told a story on some levels that we already knew, but they added something new to the mythos that then could be brought into present day. And then that present day thing had a high impact for the character because we got to witness the history of it with the character. So who knows? Scott Snyder might be doing something like that and establishing tools that he can then use for his groundwork. So I don't know. My take is right now that I'm still as excited about all of the titles that I'm reading that are being written by my favorite creators that are currently on them. So Batman, is a great example of a title I'm still excited about. I think the Bat family in general, I'm not seeing anything coming down the pipeline that I'm not excited about. If I start reading issues where, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, this book feels like it's lost away, then it's a different conversation. But until I've read it that way, I don't have a problem. Other than the sense that you're right, behind the scenes there seems to be some crazy stuff going on, and I get that. So I'm not oblivious to that, and I'm not ignoring that. But there's a huge difference between that and does it bother me? Not until I see it turn out that way in the books where there's a problem. You know, it's that's kind of where I'm at on a take-wise. I always like to give, because, see, here's the way I look at it. I'm very sad for the creative teams that it didn't work out for, and I want to follow them to their projects, so I'm supporting them. But at the same time, the new creators that are coming in, those are also comic book creators that are looking for a job and looking to make a creative mark. So, you know, I'm not going to throw them under the bus because they were kind of thrust into a situation. I'm going to give them an open-minded chance. If they don't deliver, it's a different story. That's like where I said earlier, where some of my favorite books will sometimes have a shift. So I hope that makes sense. Do I get worried? Yeah. Do I let it overtake me? No, because, you know, ultimately I found that it'll usually pay off. I hope in Action Comics' case, boy, I would not want to follow up what they're currently doing in Action. But, you know, if you get a special creator on there who does it, yeah. I don't know who the Action Comics creative team is. I've seen speculation on it, and maybe I saw some announcements on it, but I think I'm so caught up in what's currently going on that I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to it on that end. So I hope that helps. Good question. It's really a good question. I don't know if that answers, and I know Jim's in a similar place to what I am. Jim, I do think, tends to worry more than I do, though. So Jim actually might be a little closer to you on it, to be fair, because anytime we've talked about it on the show before, anybody who's listened for a long time, I think will say, yeah, Jim tends to say he's a little bit more worried, and it's the truth. So, and I don't think there's a wrong answer there.
How you doing, guys? It's Brian calling out of New Orleans again. Couple of little rant and raves this week. I actually like to talk about DC and other media. I recently this weekend purchased Injustice: Gods Among Us. Talked a little bit about the comic strip a while back. I have a little brother who lives about 2 hours away, so we don't get to hang out much. We purchased the game together so that we, that can be our little talk time every week, get together over the internet and play a couple of rounds. And man, it is fantastic. The little nods that they included in that game for fans was great. You got you've got a laundry list of characters they included in there. Some unlockable costumes, really cool. The Batman Beyond costume for Batman. You can be Hal as Yellow Lantern. They got some new 52 costumes and Flashpoint costumes. It's really cool. The story was really interesting, and I enjoyed the game very much. And I know video games is something you talk about pretty often on your show. I've heard you mention it once or twice. I know especially Blue Beetle being a character. I've heard you mention at least 2 times about a guy that would be awesome as a video game. I think you're absolutely correct. And I hope, and it looks like DC is starting to get their act together as far as other media is concerned. They're still finding their footing in movies, and I think that's more Warner Brothers' fault than DC's. But, it seems like they're starting to do more in the video game world. You've got all the Batman Arkham games, and I hope they step more out of that and they go towards characters like Blue Beetle. Or I personally think, Red Hood would be an awesome video game. There's a series called Devil May Cry. I think if you apply that game mechanic to a character like Red Hood, it would be incredible. He's got a sword, he's got the gun, so it would make a good video game character, I think. There's a couple of, Green Arrow being hot right now with the TV series. That would be another great route. The bow and arrow, there's Tomb Raider game out right now that kind of goes that route. It'd be awesome. But, I'm excited about the way they're going. I know they're doing another Batman Origins game coming out later this year, and there's going to be one on the Vita, which I'm really excited about. I own a Vita, so that should be pretty cool. But, I hope they do more stuff like this, because this Injustice game was really cool. The nods in it were awesome. Does a lot of fan service. It's really cool. And, well, I guess I touched on it a little bit in that conversation, but in the movies, the trailer for the Man of Steel came out this week. It being Superman's big birthday, 75 years. Man, what a trailer! I'm so excited about this movie. I can't believe I'm excited about a Man of Steel movie. Superman was not my favorite as a character, so to be as excited as I am, it's kind of funny. But I'm looking at the trailer. I'm starting to think to myself, we've called and we've had these conversations about what should DC do with their universe. Should they go the Avengers route? Should they create a new Justice League movie? Should they make this Superman the inclusion, the start to their universe? And it looks like, with people getting excited and the good word, DC's finally starting to kind of come out and say, okay, well, maybe we're going to give you some more news and we're going to do it. And I think if they do it, I would love, it kind of looks like they're going the route of maybe Zod being, hunting, Jor-El, the son of Jor-El, Kal-El. I mean, it looks like they're going that route because in the trailers, it looks like he has a personal vendetta on Krypton with his father and everything like that. And I don't know if these battles that we're seeing are on Earth or on Krypton in the trailers. It's very, very cryptic, but it looks like we're going to get some big battles on Earth. And anyway, they're introducing this large galactic universe in this movie. I would love to see, and I don't think we need to make a bunch of movies also. I'm changing my mind on introducing a bunch of movies to make a Justice League movie work. However, I do have a thought that in between this movie and maybe a Justice League movie, you do one in between. And you kind of do like a DC Presents, like a World's Finest. I've heard people talk with a Batman, Superman, but maybe do a little bit more than that. Go a DC Presents way and include some of the characters and then bring in your new Green Lantern there. And, everybody's saying that you don't want to bring Darkseid in as the villain for the Justice League movie because he's a Thanos kind of character and it would be so similar. And you know what? There's a character there in the mythology that would be great for a Justice League movie, a great villain that would need to bring that many heroes together. And he's in Superman, and that's Brainiac. Do a DC Presents, introduce a new Green Lantern, and have it be like he comes to Earth and he tells everybody, all these heroes that are starting to pop up around the universe because Superman has inspired a whole new universe at this point, as I think Man of Steel is going to be the kickoff point for. And, have him say this thing is going around and it's destroying galaxies and it's too much for the core to handle and it's on its way to Earth. What are we going to do about it? Superman already archives, boom, 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 reference. We've got to do something. We need more than just me. We need a Justice League. There you go. Justice League movie. DC, if you're listening to this, call me. I can write the script. I can do it. But, anyway, I'm getting excited for all of that stuff. And hopefully DC's getting their act together in other media. And it looks like they're finally starting to do it. And I hope everybody goes out and they support the Man of Steel movie. Even though Superman Returns didn't do that well, if we don't go out, we don't support these movies, we're not going to get more. We didn't go out and we didn't support Green Lantern. And it wasn't horrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. We didn't support it. And what happened, we basically got Warner Brothers going, I don't know if we should do Green Lantern, and I don't know if we should do a Flash, and I don't know if we should do this or that or the other. And it got them scared. So let's let them know that they can take a chance. So let's go out and support the Man of Steel. Whatever you hear, just go check it out because I'm excited about this. I'm a movie kind of guy, and I want to see more of our media in the movies. And I think it would be a great thing for the future generations. My son loves watching the movies with me. He's about to be 4 years old now, so he's just getting excited for that kind of stuff. And I love to see a future where he can enjoy my characters in the movies. So anyway, guys, I've rambled on enough. I hope you have a good week.
It's funny. I kind of want to start with Superman Returns because I've been reading up a lot recently about this, and I've got to admit I'm not an expert, but I guess Superman Returns, total worldwide, did something like $391 million, which is like right in the ballpark of what Batman Begins did. So, I mean, how do you consider that a flop? I know critically it didn't do well, but financially it actually did. But I guess one of the big problems is, and I don't pretend that I have a full understanding of this, so please take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt. This is somebody who, I don't know a lot about the whole movie behind the scenes thing. I just know what I've been reading about this. I guess what ended up happening was that there was certain elements of the budgets of all of the previous attempts to restart Superman that were tied into all this. So I guess because of that, it was a budgetary failure because of that. But it's still, the movie did $391 million, which, I mean, there was a lot of competition when it was going on then. And then I think ultimately because of the critical reception and all that too, they just kind of looked at it as maybe we need to shelve this for a little while. So I guess that was the issue there. Man of Steel is a very different thing. I am having, and I don't know about you, I'm having trouble finding anybody who has anything bad to say about these trailers. And I'm talking about casual people who don't normally read comics are excited for this film. It looks exciting. It looks eye-catching. To me, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I'm a Batman guy. I thought Nolan's 3 most recent Batman movies are pretty darn near perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's certain things in the geeky fan where I'm like, oh, they did this a little bit more, but a little bit more like the comics. Yeah, sure, there's kind of that nitpicky stuff. But moment for moment, if you look at just like high-five moments, those films just nailed it. Every time I've seen one of these trailers for Man of Steel, I keep thinking to myself, like, this has the potential to be one of the great ones. And, it could surpass my expectations on even those Batman movies just because it looks that good. Especially this third trailer. There's something about it that was just really special. So I have a lot of anticipation for this. And I like, walking into a film with this kind of anticipation and excitement. You were talking about, like, what should DC do next? My feeling at this point, I've become a very patient person. I would much rather them not rush the process and find the right script, find the right director, find the right actors, and put out quality where it looks like this Man of Steel film, than something that is not as critically satisfying as like Superman Returns. I enjoyed the film when it came out, but boy, it doesn't have the rewatchability. I don't rewatch the movie, which says a lot. I enjoyed it when I was I wanted to go. I even saw it in IMAX. After I saw it regularly, we were out of town and in Columbus. We don't have an IMAX locally that shows mainstream film. So I was in Columbus, Ohio, which is quite a bit farther than us, and I really wanted to see this in IMAX because they did the IMAX 3D thing. It was fantastic seeing that. But admittedly, I own the movie now. I've watched it once since I bought it, and I have not watched it again. And, I've certainly had plenty of opportunities. I still go back to the Donner films when I'm going to do that. Whereas with the Batman movies, it's just the opposite. I own all the previous Batman films. I first now go to the Nolan films. I want to watch the Nolan films. So, the rewatchability, how well do the films hold up over time? I'm still watching Donner Superman films to get my Superman fix. And the old classic movie serials. I went back to those things, which are fantastic as well. So, I don't know. I'm hoping that we get that. I like your idea of doing a DC Presents. I don't know how that would work on film as far as I think it would work in a geeky sense for all of us. Would it work for the general public? I don't know. Right script, right director, sure. You could do like a Pulp Fiction kind of thing or something like that, where you're kind of weaving in and out of characters, or even a Sin City in that kind of presentation. You have to link it together the right way. For Justice League villains, boy, I liked your idea of Brainiac. I'm thinking of characters like Despero. There's a part of me that wonders, too, though, if, they're having so much trouble coming up with a villain. I don't know if there's anything wrong with them coming up with a really well-developed new villain, and do kind of like what Doomsday did in the comics when that character was presented, or Hush or something like that, where it's a character that you just find that's compelling and adds something, unique to the mythos. So I don't know. Morrison did a great job of that when he had his Justice League run, where he was introducing brand new characters into that run, as well as using the classics. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with that route going either. To me, I would rather them, instead of saying we've got to follow the Marvel route, if they're able to do that and they've got the movies in line and the right directors and the right scripts, sure, go the Marvel route. Go ahead and do that. I think that's great. But, again, I really don't want to see them forcing that. I think when it's forced, you lose the quality. Thanks for giving us the review for Injustice. I don't have the main game yet. It's one of those I'm considering grabbing, only because I don't have a regular console right now. But I think it's great that Warner Brothers is expanding out too. I would say with gaming, it's the same issue though. If you look back at how superhero games are viewed, there has been a very mixed bag. You've referenced in your great commentary, there's some just amazing superhero games that we've been getting recently. And I think on the Marvel and DC end, both, they've been licensing out to the right people and we're getting a lot better games. I think you really need to build a customer confidence that these games are ones that are must-buys. They are must-plays. You need that critical reception for them to kind of take superhero video gaming out of that stereotype. And the only way to do that is by being careful and making the right decisions on who you license to or internally what you're doing with it. And I think they're getting better with that. I like how you threw out game engines, like Devils May Cry and stuff like that. I also, I play games like Assassin's Creed and I played the God of War series and the new Tomb Raider I thought was fantastic. So your connections there. I think you can take similar game concepts or those game engines and easily turn them into superhero games. I've referenced on the show many times that I think God of War should be a template for a Wonder Woman video game. I mean, I just think you've got it. That's right there. That's the Wonder Woman game. It should be that. Because, and I think it's just because of the connectivity to the mythology that I think would make that God of War game engine one that would be perfect for a Wonder Woman game. Or, that concept. So I don't know. But again, with gaming, I say the same thing. Let's not rush them out. Let's, put out games that matter, that people talk about. So that way, as you expand and go the direction where we want them to go, because I agree with your thinking, and I'm in that mindset too. But as you expand them out, people will try those games because they're under that banner, because that production studio or that production company has a reputation of being, these are must-play games. So even if it's a character that I don't recognize as much, wow, I need to give them a shot because this other game with the character that I really love, knocked my socks off. That's the only way that's going to work. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think in both cases, these films have got to maintain that quality in order for them to break the stigma. And they're doing it. Marvel, I think, is doing an excellent job with it. I think the recent DC films are. This Man of Steel, woof. They have to really have taken what they've done in the trailer and make that the only good things in the movie. Because if there's nothing that leads up to all those great moments we're seeing in the trailers, I'm kind of confused as how you could make that mess, how you could screw that up. Because it seems to me from everything I'm seeing in those trailers that this has like a real perfect look to it so far. So I'm very excited. And I'm not one that worries about walking into a film with a lot of anticipation. Like, I'm excited for the second Star Trek movie. It's going to be a home run, right? I mean, I don't think any of us that are fans of the first one are looking at the trailers of that are thinking to themselves, I've got to walk in with lower expectations. I'm not going and doing that. I'm walking in excited. Same thing with Man of Steel. I'm really walking in. Iron Man, I'm walking in excited for that. I mean, this is a great geeky summer for films. So, I don't know. We'll see how everything plays out. But thanks for the call, and I'm with you on the expansion. I'd like to see it as well. But I still maintain that I would like to see it careful and not forced, and with quality being at the forefront. It's got to be all about quality. So that way you build a reputation of delivering only that. Jim, I cannot wait to introduce Batgirl number 19. Returning writer Gail Simone, Daniel Sampier penciler, Jonathan Glapian and Mark Deering on inks, Blonde on colors, Dave Sharp letters, Eddie Barrows, Eber Ferreira, and Marcelo Miolio cover. Apologies in advance for any name butchery there because I loved how this played out. Editor Katie Kubert, group editor Mike Martz, Batman created by Bob Kane. She's back! Woohoo! Yeah, ooh, man. I've got to say this, being fair, I enjoyed the two fill-in issues. I thought they were good. And I got to give compliments to Ray Fawkes because I really felt like, if you're going to do fill-in issues and you got a writer who clearly took a look at everything that had gone before and was really cognizant of the fact that, okay, this book has a direction. We need to make sure to keep that same momentum going. I thought he did a really good job of doing that. When I saw issue number 19, oh my God! The anticipation was already there because Gail was coming back, but this is a writer, again, who I walk in. It's funny how we were talking about this with Man of Steel at the beginning. I always walk in with her with a certain high expectation just because she's always delivered for me. She speaks to me. I love her writing, and because of that. This is a great example of an issue where I knew ahead of time before I had gotten my issue because, everybody was talking about it on the day of the reveal with the character being transgender, her roommate. It's funny how that was, I really enjoyed that part of the issue. I loved how that all played out. That's not all there. Oh my God, that's not all there is to this issue. This is an incredibly powerful issue that really plays on, I think, a lot of the strengths of the writer that Gail Simone is. Strong character development with interactions, not only when she's in the costume, but when she's out of the costume. Both of those worlds colliding. How do you balance those worlds? I love the reality that she brings to superhero comics. And when I say the reality, what I mean is, you've got this sense of real time where, it's, I always marvel at the fact that Barbara is able to juggle life in general. Because in this book, her life is delivered to us. We get through her entire internal dialogue and through the interaction she has with people just how hard it is to juggle both, to try and keep those friendships alive, to try and balance family, even the crazy family, and make it all work and come together. And I love the fact that she feels human and vulnerable, but incredibly strong, too. So, it's everything that I want from Batgirl comics. To say that this issue is one of my favorites this month is a gross understatement. I really enjoyed the pacing of this. I was so looking forward to her return, and boy, did she hit a home run.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, this was... And it's funny because, I had no idea anything about the transgender before reading the issue. I didn't hear any of the spoilers or anything about it until I actually started reading, and I was like, wait, did I just read that? What? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Because when you're dealing with, topics like transgender, you need the right type of person to control the story and to run the story and how it comes out. Because there's so many complexities that come out of just the concept alone. And then when you start interacting the characters, you start interacting them in the life, and this is going to be, I'm really excited for that. But that's even just one piece of this. There's so many layers of Barbara, there's so many layers of her and her roommate relationship that we now have another little part of that whole, dynamic. And to, just put it there and then continue on with the story was a great usage of it. I love the fact that we've got the start of this. This isn't just the beginning and end of it. No, this is the opening salvo of this story, of this character. We've seen some pretty cool interactions between Barbara and the roommate. Well, guess what? Now we're going to start seeing some development of them as, is more than just roommates. There will be that close connection. There will be, that bonding as they're revealing more information from each other. I do eventually see the roommate becoming a full confidant of Barbara.
Yes.
Eventually. Now, right now, I love the fact that she didn't give her everything because, one, she doesn't want to put her in jeopardy. She's like, I didn't tell her about the cowl. I don't want to put her at risk for any of my enemies seeking, I'm stumbling on my words.
Revenge.
But, seeking retribution.
Right. Okay. Jim, can I ask you about one thing? First of all, I agree with everything you're saying here about the roommate potentially becoming a full confidant. Does she have to, though? Because, what I'm finding that's interesting about this is, first of all, I see the exact possibility you're saying, so this isn't to contradict you. It's more of a... I do think it's interesting as well that, she felt like, I'm going to tell her everything, let her into my world, accept that, and use her as a confidant, and not use her as a confidant, I should say, and become friends and a confidant with her. Maybe, in some ways, maybe there's a therapeutic nature of that to Barbara saying, you know what? Maybe it's kind of good that she's not a part of that. And she can be my kind of escape from all that, because I think there's something healthy in a very unhealthy world to having that person where maybe it's not always about talking about being Batgirl. Maybe it's sometimes escaping from being Batgirl and just kind of getting away and just having somebody to support you and take your mind off it and, to throw things off of without them being right in the middle of it. So I think there's a point beyond just protection. I would have no issue if it does go that route where she becomes a full confidant. I think there's a point to that, too. And there's always that point where the best laid plans, there's the accidental discovery that can happen as well, where, maybe Barbara wants to keep her out of it, and she doesn't have much choice because life doesn't let her have the choice. I'd be fine with that as well. There's a lot of different routes this can go. But I did find, like, I loved the way the two of them were opening up to each other, and the transgender thing came out, and I felt like it felt very real. And I know how Gail Simone writes, and it was funny, one of the discussion threads I was a part of, and I really respected all of the people that were in there, the people who I respect and love chatting with. The question comes up, as does a lot of times in comics now, is this an editorial stunt, or is it something that the writer wanted as far as directions? And I see this potentially going two ways without knowing myself. If there was an editorial type of thing where an editor threw out, hey, what if we did this character transgender? I see Gail Simone being the type of writer going, oh, what a cool idea. I'm just going to go with it. And I've got a great idea on how to do this and introduce it, because she embraces that kind of thing. But I got to be honest with you, I think just knowing her history with what she's done with Birds of Prey with Savant and Creo, what we had in Secret Six with Scandal, the way that she does this with such care and dignity, where these are characters, it's not done as a stunt. It's done because we're trying to show what the real world is like and how everyone is different. Ryan Choi, going for different diverse backgrounds and things like that. She's a writer that I really jumps to and embraces those things. So whether it was her idea or if it was brought up by somebody else, wherever it came from, I see her as being the type of writer that has always embraced diversity of characters in comics to make it a real world feel, because it's interesting and unique storytelling, and it does feel natural because the world is very different. It's not all one tunnel going through. So I do feel like this is something that if it was that, there's not a negative to it. There's a positive to it because of the writer that's attached. And I don't know what that looks like. I've never, emailed and asked, hey, did you do this? Because, quite frankly, as a reader, I just really enjoy reading her stuff. And, I just think in this case, I just don't see there being any negative to this. I just feel it was nice how this wasn't done right from the beginning with the character. I like that we got to know her, and then we've become attached to this character. And all of a sudden, hey, by the way, guys, I like that we kind of found out with Barbara.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I thought doing this in issue 19, I feel like this was something that was intended by Gail all along. And wherever the genesis was of the idea, it doesn't matter as much as the writer developing to this. And whether or not it was the intention all along or not, she sure made me feel like it was. It felt natural that, this is something you would reveal now. And we found out, maybe one of those things, it might be one of those things was Gail was writing. She's like, oh, I just found this out about her. You know what I mean? That can happen as well. I can imagine where you have ideas for the direction of a supporting cast member. And sometimes as you get to know that supporting cast member, you might have found out a secret about them that you didn't know when you originally created the character. And that's possible as well. So I think there's a lot of different avenues to this reveal. But to me, I felt as a reader like I was discovering this with Barbara, and I know I've shared on the show many times how I'm a fan of traveling with my favorite characters and discovering things with them and getting to know situations and feel like I'm sitting there on the chair across the way. I felt like I was sitting there. I was like, what? Whoa. And I'm like, but it's so cool. It just doesn't matter. I love that I feel the same way about the character now in issue 19 that I felt about the roommate when she was first introduced. I love the concept of the roommate. I like that she has this confidant. I was more afraid, I don't know if you felt this way, that the roommate was going to be written out because of what happened with James Jr. I like that she's still there.
Yeah, I was worried we were going to lose the roommate over this. And when everything first started laying out, she showed up at the house and she dropped the bat. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She's not going anywhere. She's still going to be around. And then you get the reveal. I'm like, holy crud. And I loved how this laid out, where it was the last panel of the page. And you had to flip the page to see Barbara's reaction. And you get that first page where she has the shock. And then she's like, Babs, pardon? The people I love call me Babs. I love that moment where it was just, boom, this is who you are. This is cool. We are, this is right there. This shows their character. This shows what kind of person she is. She had that moment of shock where you're going to have that shock. This is a surprise that you find out, okay, but there's nothing wrong with this. She's okay with this. She accepts it. And not only that, she accepts this person who's telling her this. This is her friend. This is someone she cares about. This is, her roommate. This is, as I said, that's why I kind of see a confidant coming down the line, but it doesn't have to happen. They can keep the level they're at right now because there is already that trust. Because we see when Barbara gets the call, The roommate's like, hey, that's cool. I understand. She didn't ask questions where Barbara had to go. She didn't have to come up with some, excuse. Oh, I got to do this. No, you don't need that kind of explanation when you're dealing with close friends like this. This is, hey, I got to go. Cool. Be careful, be safe. See you later, roomie. And it was a nice, just kind of acceptance on both of their parts, where the roommate is accepting more of Barbara, even though Barbara isn't telling her everything, and Babs is, of course, accepting the roommate for who she is. I was very happy to see it go from shock to acceptance to just that emotional outpouring, and I'm looking forward to seeing future, just their interactions, based on the fact that this is now out there. It's not going to be about every moment about transgender, this and that. It's going to be two people who are just hanging out and reacting and living in this universe. It's that comfortability of who we are.
I love that I felt closer to both characters after that exchange. Because it was, for them, it was a moment of, we're giving each other something, some part of ourselves that we didn't before, because we've hit this point where we got a crossroads here. We're either going to splinter or we're going to come together. They came together. And that's what that moment was all about. It was about coming together and seeing two characters where they're like, you know what, I'm going to give you a part of myself that I don't normally give to somebody else. And the reason I'm going to give you that is because after everything we've been through, I'm making the decision that this friendship is important enough to me to work at. To make it work, I need to show you right now that you're somebody important to me. And, you have a choice to either let it go the other way, and that happens in life. That's part of it. But in this moment, these two people made this decision to say, we went through this trauma together, let's come together. And let's be stronger because of it. And there was a trust of working through all that together. There's still emotional scars there for both of them, but they're stronger people because they've come out the other side, and now they've got a trust that wasn't there before, that I think is really, really great. I just loved everything about that moment. It wouldn't mean as much if this issue did not have the history that led up to it. And I think that's the important part about picking the time with the characters when you do something like this. And that's the difference to me between great storytelling and a stunt. It's great storytelling when you feel like, wow, this is a great transition point to move the characters forward in some way that has impact on both of them. And I agree with you, Colin. I think the Babs moment was just as important as the transgender reveal. I thought that was, like Babs saying, you know what, hey, I just want to let you know, it's cool. And I'm with you. The character doesn't feel any different to me now because of this. It's, to me, the same character we've been reading all along, just happened to reveal she's transgender. Okay, cool, move along. And I thought that was really what was one of the greatest things about that moment, was that feel for me. I just loved it. I thought it was really, really cool. It's funny how I first saw that page before reading it in context. So if anybody saw that page and are listening to this and you didn't read the issue, please do yourself a favor and read the whole issue, because you can't take a page like that that's meant to be read in a whole entire story and take it out of that context and not see the development and where it goes afterwards and how the characters impacted, inner dialogue and stuff leading up there. One page in and of itself is not a story. And do yourself a favor and read all of issue 19 because of that. Can we go back to the beginning a little bit? Because we didn't gloss over it. I think we jumped to, the event that people were talking about. But this moment where they're watching the horror movies together and we get the James, this moment where they thought that it's okay, James, it's only a movie, right? And he's upset because of the mistakes the killer's making. You know what I loved about that? I'm going to say it again about this writer. I adored what Scott Snyder did in that whole Black Mirror storyline and, what he did with James Jr. and stuff like that. What I love is that Gale takes a character like that and goes, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to play with this guy. And I'm going to play with this guy in Barbara's world. And she's now showing us and expanding on and building us. She likes to play with toys. But she likes to say, hey, here's the difference. You got to play with this really cool toy, and you twisted and turned it and all that. Did you ever turn it upside down and look at what was underneath? And she's really good at doing that and saying, hey, did you ever shake the box to see if there was an accessory or two in there that you forgot about? She finds them. This is a great example of that. And I just loved everything about that moment. I love the art in that moment. I thought the color work was really great. There was something about the tones. I liked that because they were watching a black and white movie, I liked that the light sourcing of the sequence of them sitting there was, a single kind of like color tone that was lightened and darkened and stuff like that. I think it was just I don't know how to explain, because I'm not an artist, but that visual there was something about that. It felt like I was watching television with them. Again, I'm a fan of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that it looks a little bit grittier because of the black and white, because it's an older, style. But then when we go back to the present, the roommate's watching the exact same movie. And I was glad that we had that connection there. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That was something that when I went through and I was reading, wait, is that the same? Oh, cool. And I jumped back and reread it again and saw that it was the same thing. And I kind of chuckled because when he was sitting there saying sloppy, and he was upset that the fact that the killer was so sloppy, I was just thinking back to how many times I've ever seen like a movie where I get upset that when the villain does that stupid villain moment, and you're like, oh, come on, why'd you do that? You could have won. And, that element of realism that you put into a movie where like you didn't have to go that way. They could have made it something else. And the fact that I'm not, I'm not upset with the villain because I'm like, hey, I could kill him better. But I'm thinking, it's that style. And everybody kind of does it. But, with James, it's beyond just that initial, oh, come on, why are you doing that? No, James is sitting there going, no, you can do better. Here's how I would do it. He's actually laying out the plan work. He's actually plotting out in his head. And you see from the beginning, from birth, from a young age, this was a monster. And this is what they always say with these serial killers. They're born this way. This is how they are. This is who they are. You see them from the young age where the little kids, torturing little innocent animals, and just the whole, just that, what creates the monster? Where does it come from? Well, with James, this is who he is. He's wired wrong.
Does your issue have because I know on the digital version they had the dialogue for the film. Did your version have that?
No.
Yeah, see, would you want to hear what he said then?
Yeah.
No bridges. I told you, no bridges.
Tell me, are you serious?
No.
You have me going. I'm like, what?
Slasher Segulin. I told you, no bridges.
Dude, man, that's not funny.
I could do it better. Sorry.
Oh, dude, that was awesome. If you hadn't told me that it wasn't that way, I would have jumped on that digital. While the show's going on, I would have been ordering the digital copy. For people listening that don't know what we're talking about, Jim has an alter ego we used to joke about on the show, Bridgeman. And it was, like everybody, we all have our phobias and things like that, but yours has been bridges. And I have mine, heights. It tends to be my area. We all have different things that kind of hit us. But it's kind of become... And one of the things I really enjoy about working with you on this podcast is just the great sport you are when we joke around about things and stuff like that, because you're just that kind of human being. And so Bridgeman became one of those endearing things out there, which is why I couldn't resist going there. But I figured we should share where that's coming from for people maybe who are newer listeners. That actually comes from it's a point of endearment versus it being a negative. I liked how this whole moment with the roommate now that then led into the moments we want to see, where we get to see Barbara on the cycle. I love the use of the cycle. There's something about seeing her on a bat cycle going down there. That takes me back to the classic 60s series. And to me, you take elements like that and then bring them into today and make them cool today and now. There's that nostalgia with a very modern feel to it. And that really works for me in the Batgirl series. Again, we get this type of things. I told her everything, yes, I did, except about the cowl. If she doesn't know that part, I can still protect her, I can. The Joker is dead, hopefully. But if he shows up somewhere, anywhere, I get her gone. That leaves just razor blades and the roses. My brother. My very, very dangerous brother. So she's looking at I've got to protect my life now. And if I need to get her somewhere safe because the Joker comes back again and he may know, because she's still believing there's a possibility the Joker knows about me. So if the Joker really does know about me and he comes back after me again,
I'm going to get her safe. But before I can even worry about that, my brother was messing with her. I can't let that stand. This is my responsibility. This is different from the typical hero role for her. There's a responsibility to those she cares about in her life. And I like when we get to see hero moments like this, where we sit there and have them, it's not just about saving Gotham and not just about saving, faceless victims, the people that you don't really know, their whole personality and everything. You get to that on this one where you're like, this is personal. This is about my life. I've got to protect those that I love. I can't let this go on, because then I've got to give this person up. But even if I give this person up, that James Jr. is going to know that she only gave that person up because she was trying to protect her. So she has no choice here. James has put her in an impossible situation where she has to do something. And it puts the conundrum that this issue goes into. This is why this is one of my favorite issues that I've read this month in comics. It may be my absolute favorite this month, because I really was engaged from this moment straight on through. And that's where I think the moment where they have that connection between the two of them, and you see what that importance of that friendship to Barbara, then it leads to her saying, if I want to keep any semblance of a normal life, I have to deal with this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but there has to be a resolution so she can be safe, so I can live this life, so we can have, I can have this. And she deserves that. Anybody deserves that. I loved the way that played out because I was so rooting for her throughout this entire issue. And that's where that moment in the beginning, that's what I'm saying. In isolation, you can't take those moments in isolation. You have to follow that flow and pacing from the introduction with her and James Jr. to that moment with the roommate, straight on through to this moment where she's got the inner dialogue saying, look at all I've just been through with Death of the Family, with the Joker, leading to what James has done, how he's manipulated things behind the scenes. This cannot stand. It needs to stop. This is not the same character we read in issue 1. She's in a different place now. We've seen an evolution of Barbara Gordon from where she was at the beginning of the New 52. I love how this is going. This is what I want to see. This is what Gale does best. And I'm really into it.
Oh, big time. Big time. And it's funny, as you're going, I'm just nodding my head saying, yes, 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 testify. Because this whole sequence, as it's playing out, and this is something that second, third read-through was still just as powerful the first time through. And, even though I knew what was going to happen, it still drew me in tighter. I was like, oh, my God. You start looking at all the details, everything as it's playing out. And just this was an absolute beautiful dance of just a wonderful capstone to what we've already had coming down the line, what we've laid out, and as you said, this is a great evolution of Barbara. Right here, this end of this issue is a pivotal turning point for the character, for the person, for the hero. Just everything about her has kind of, we're looking at 19 issues now of in the new universe, and she still's growing. There's still room for growth. There's still room for change, but she has reached that level of, bam, this is who I am. I got to rock this. I got to do this. And it's funny, as this plays out, I'm sitting there loving this. I'm loving the character even more.
Yeah. This is why you've got to give writers breathing room to tell stories, because these moments with James Jr. where he's calling Dad, saying things are coming to a head, I want you to be here, come alone, or I swear I'll give you nightmares for the rest of your life. Are we clear on that? Like, I believe him. Yeah. And I love how she crafts a twisted villain. This is already a twisted villain. Scott Snyder did a great job with him. She understands and gets what's going on with this guy and just takes it to another level. And that's not taking anything away from what Scott Snyder has done. It's my respect for this writer and what she does and how she gets to know characters. She does with Bane. So many great stories I loved with Bane throughout the years. And I think there's been writers along the way who didn't always understand Bane to the same level. I enjoyed their storytelling with him, but I always felt like, it wasn't quite the Bane that I felt he was. In Secret Six, she got him. And she showed us new sides to him while completely 100% embracing who the character is. She's doing this with James Jr. We're getting to know more about him. She's expanding on him, using the foundation that was there before, not throwing anything out the window, adding to the mythos. She's, again, action figure accessories, adding these things on there. That's really, really great. This is James Jr. with the Kung Fu grip. I mean, it's like really, really cool. I love this kind of stuff. You push his back and the bat goes up. And I got a funny feeling if we look through the back of his head, he's got a bionic eye, but that's just me.
Well, he's got the hole now in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to talk also. We're gushing about the writing, but we got to gush about artwork. There is just some absolute beautiful sequences. And the one that I keep looking at and I keep staring at is we're at the amusement park. James and the mom has already started talking. He started his little bit of banter, and that's when Barbara swoops in. And I love this look. This, with, it's got the light source behind, so the face is completely covered in shadow, but you still see the flowing red hair. It's, a classic traditional Bat look of swoop in, has that darkness to her that normally Barbara, I always, picture with a little bit of light to her, a little bit of that brightness. Well, right here, this isn't about, the Barbara, the fun-loving. She is a member of the Bat family. This is about time to throw down. This is serious. This is hardcore. And I loved how we capture that. One, we get the great effect of the rain, the storm, the flashes of lightning, but we do get that intensity. And you can see just that in, some of the sequences in her eyes and when she's getting in position, when she's putting herself between James and her mother, and just that defensive posture she's taking, that combat posture. She's ready to fight. She's ready to throw down. I love these physical sequences.
See, I'm always a big believer that if you want a great hero, you've got to have a great villain that you want to see him take down. You must be this tall to cry?
Yeah.
You're looking well. How's the finger? And the whole story about how, I could have saved it. The doctors could have reattached it. I almost did. Then I got this funny idea to toss it in a dumpster behind a Big Belly Burger just 2 blocks from Gotham Emergency. Is that bad? Do I get a timeout? What a twisted dude. But what I love about that, talk about incredible dialogue right there. We've got this inner monologue that was fantastic from Barbara. See, I knew some things about you, James. I knew if you went rabbit, we might never find you. And you'd never fall for a trap. It had to be your idea, James. Again, one of the strengths of Gail's writing, and she did this in Birds of Prey. I remember when Savant broke, kind of went all misery on Black Canary. And you read that, did you read the old?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just a great story. She went, and that was one of the runs where I was just kind of like, that really helped me get a handle on what I love about Gail. What worked on that story for me so much was not just what Dinah went through, but how she rose up from it. And how she came back stronger, and how it made her and Barbara stronger. This moment does that same thing for me. We've seen everything that Barbara's gone through recently. And in this moment, in that dialogue, we're seeing evolution of her. She's coming at this from a point of strength. She doesn't give up. She's been knocked down, but she rises. And it's actually one of my favorite lines from The Dark Knight Rises is that whole where they're doing that line in the foreign language. And what's that mean? Rise. This is her rising. And I just love this moment. It's just really, really fantastic. And you're right. That visual presence of her jumping out there looks fantastic because of the build. There's a difference between doing a splash shot like that, a splash pagey shot like that, in isolation. You're kind of like, wow, I can admire the beauty of the artwork, and amen to everything you said about the artwork. What works even more about that and adds even more validity to that really cool stuff you said was that build to that. Because when that moment hits, you're like, oh, yeah, get him.
Yeah, it's on now.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah, and you got to build to that. And this issue has built to that. I really love that.
Now, the mom going all dirty Harry on her.
Oh, yeah.
That was one that... I don't want to say that I saw it coming, but it was one of the, it wasn't until that very moment when I see her reaching in the coat that I'm like, it kind of paused. I'm like, wait, what is she going to do? And again, it was another beautiful one page, flip the page, you see the bam, you're like, whoa. I kind of had a thought that it could happen, but I was still shocked and surprised that the mom just unloaded on him. And that was, again, I was just like, whoa, in this issue, we have multiple times when I've sat back and I was like, wow, oh my.
The evolution of Barbara's maturity here, one of the things I love in that moment, it would have been easy for her to let Mom settle this, because that would have taken all of the potential guilt, all of the after effects off of her. You let Mom take that. You don't have to. Instead, she said, I know where Mom's been. And think about where that relation, she didn't want anything to do with this woman when she first showed up. Look where she's at now. Now she's taking the hit for her. She's like, I can't let Mom deal with this. Look at everything she's gone through. Look where she's come. I need to be the one to handle this. It's my turn to step up. She's going to do this for me. I can't let her. I love the power of that moment because, again, it shows a strength of where she's come, recognizing not only, and that's where, it's no longer about, my back was broken, and all this type of thing happened. We saw her go through all this. And is that Ghost Murders? Sure. And we're going to see some of that again, I'm sure. But this is, again, a character who we've seen gradually evolve issue through issue of this to get to this point where she can say, I'm ready for this now. This is no longer me, who's just coming back. I'm Batgirl. And this is my mother. And she can't do this. I need to handle it. There's so much more power in where this issue went because of this moment where she's got to then take on James Jr. And I love it when he comes up from behind with the hammer. And we see her having to suck it up and just say, you can't pin me down. I've got to get up. I've got to pull from somewhere deep inside me to stop you. So I'm not a victim again. Because he was ready to break her again. She couldn't let that happen. I loved seeing her get up again and say, it's not going to happen again this time. You aren't going to take me here. I'm taking you down.
Well, even James was just getting started. Mm-hmm. He was going to, cripple Barbara again because that would further drive the mom insane, be that final nail in the coffin, and then going to go after he has a special date planned for the roommate. I'm like, oh my God, he really is just this absolute psychopath. And you love it when the hero does the gut check. You love it when they step up and say, no more. This is it, and she just starts throwing, and she just starts fighting, and it's builds from the bottom, just that guttural, that pure hero moments where you're fighting, she's fighting blacking out, she's fighting concussion, she's fighting every possible thing that's being thrown at her, and she keeps pushing on, and you gotta love that.
I love in that moment where, first of all, he reveals the truth, and I think this is it harkens on things that I think you've got brothers and a sister. I've got a brother. And I think there comes a point in time in your life where you either resolve this kind of thing or you're constantly stuck with it. I'm fortunate enough that I can say my brother and I resolved this quite a while ago. I'm lucky on that end because we had some rough years where we didn't resolve this kind of thing. Where there was my brother's more of the sports guy than I am. I was always the geeky comic book gaming nerd kind of thing. So and where this pays off is my father and my brother always had a lot more in common than I did. And the truth of the matter is, I think once I learned to accept that, no, I really love the things that I love. And my father, I've started to realize my father accepts me for who I am. My brother and I, as we've gotten older and matured, have really become very respectful of each other and who we are as different people. We wouldn't do this. But there was probably a time in our life where we would beat each other quite a bit like this. And I think it's really important when you read stories like this to get the message here. You need to deal with life. You need to deal with these issues. You can't brush them under the carpet. You can't. James bottled them up. He never told anybody any of this. I guarantee you this is the first time it was revealed because Mom didn't know.
Yeah.
And
none of them knew.
No. And for this to have been his thing, perfect little Barbara and all that, look at she was always your special one. For him to have been harboring that resentment for his entire life of her, leading to this point right now, woo, wow, what a moment.
Oh God, yeah, and it's I think it is the people who have the siblings. You can kind of understand it. You can kind of sympathize with it. I wasn't the perfect son. I wasn't I'm the youngest of the family, so everything I did always was compared to my older brothers and my older sister. And it was kind of, when I was growing up, there was resentment that I had towards some of my siblings. If I did something good, it was like, oh, you're just like your brothers, you're just like your sister. I do something bad, like, oh, that's what, I only owned the bad stuff. Like, how could you do that? Why don't you be more like them? Why don't you do like this? And you can kind of understand the resentment now where it didn't drive me insane like it did, James, because one, I may be a little touched in the head, but I'm not psychotic like this. This shows where it comes from. We all kind of deal with these moments. We all have this kind of stuff, especially when you're the youngest, especially when you have an older sibling who is so good at, is so perfect at something. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. You either embrace the fact that, they have this wonderful talent and, look to your own strengths, or you let it twist you. And that's what James did. And I loved that we got this reveal. We got part of this, that it wasn't just evil. It's evil, but there's the manipulation. Here's the justification in his head where it came from. Now, valid, invalid, that's the whole argument of crazy. Crazy versus evil. I was glad we got this.
Is there a calculator in the New 52?
I don't know if we've seen him yet.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
If James became the new calculator?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, yeah. That would be wonderful. Especially you think about it, because, he's got a batarang in the eye, probably a broken bat, and he's dropped.
Well, no, they got the bat. I mean, if you take a look at it, I heard it as clear as day as he's going over a crack, injury to his spine.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty clear that, first of all, I don't think we saw the body fall down in the water, but I don't know, because we don't see the body after that, right?
Right. I think the body kind of washes out the sea, so I don't think James is dead.
No.
Because one, evil's very hard to kill.
Right.
Especially when you get an evil of this level. It's very hard to take this out. So, I think James is going to come back. And I like your notion that, a calculator, and actually kind of interesting that an evil oracle, he'll be in the chair. He's paralyzed, but physical wasn't always just the only thing he did. It's this planning, his manipulation, the strategery of James Jr.
God.
I had to pull it in somehow.
No, you really didn't.
Yes, I did. People will be upset, and they'll be disappointed if I don't do that.
Who are these people?
Okay, maybe they're in my mind, but there are people.
And where does their support group meet? I would like to
another dimension.
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm here to talk to you guys about why you should stop. The Sons of Strategery.
Oh, now we got a name.
Yeah, and it's SOS, so it's like
I like it.
Yeah, it's really. I love the ending with Gordon. I love that the mom was torn. I mean, what a powerful moment there because of who the character is. There's just so much turmoil to the whole thing. And this alters the relationship between Batgirl and Commissioner Gordon, who've had a friendly relationship. They don't now. Jim knew what a monster James Jr. was, but it's still his son. And look at the mom's case. Mom knows it's Barbara. And Mom was the one who set the trap.
Yeah.
Which I love that dialogue from Barbara, realizing, because initially she thought that it was James's trap. It wasn't. It was the mom's trap. Mom set this up in the hospital. Wow. Mm-hmm. She was the one that was going to deal with it and take the hit. And here's the funny part. I don't know that Mom could have dealt with it either way. How does any mom deal with that? There was something about that. And I think there's something about one of the things I really enjoy about superhero comics, and when you see these evil characters, it just shows the importance of dialogue between people, dialogue between family members, dialogue between friends, being there to talk and be a support. James bottled this up his entire life because he never had anybody that he could open up to in his mind. And I don't know that this family, I looking back at their history, did the family do anything wrong? No. It's just, but was there a warning sign they could have seen? I don't know. Did anybody see a warning sign with him? I think so, especially when James was crying about the film. Maybe that was our first red flag. But I like that it was warning signs. They just got scared of him and they didn't know how to deal with him. And how do you deal with that? I don't know. I think
a batarang to the eye and break his back is a pretty good way of dealing with it.
Well, yeah, but I don't know that you would do. I don't know. You couldn't have done that when he was watching that film. But I mean, what could they have done back then to maybe try on some level help this kid? I don't know. I've really loved the development of this story with this. 19 issues in, so gripping. This is what I love about her runs. I love that she builds this stuff over time. And when you eventually get the payoff, it's so powerful. I love that this wove into the Joker story. You know, she embraced what was going on in Death of the Family in her writing and didn't derail the James Jr. story. And that's what I love about the fact that the 2 issues where you've got a fill-in writer, I love that he didn't derail the story, because that I would have been very irritated. He kept this story going, you know, kept it in place. And that's really, really important, because when you come back with issue 19 and hit a home run like this is, I'm going to say it right now, especially after having a chance to talk about it, this is easily my favorite issue so far this month of any comic. I just love the payoff of it. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, oh, this is my favorite issue. You know, I'm talking about any title out there that was your favorite issue. As a Bat fan, but as a Gail Simone fan, this is exactly what I enjoy about her writing. And for anybody out there that's like, well, what? I don't get it. You know, why are you guys so into this writer's writing? This issue, to me, is a love letter to her fans. This is what she does. Yay, kudos to this book. This was really a very special issue. Anything else you got?
I'm just sitting here nodding my head saying testify.
I want to see what she does with the ventriloquist.
Yeah.
How cool
and
is
I wonder
that?
if we're going to get the traditional, you know, ventriloquist, or if we're going to get the new ventriloquist. Who are we getting? And I'm assuming Scarface is this going to be the birth of Scarface? Is this going to be an existing Scarface? Where's this going to happen? How's this going to play out? That's what I'm curious about.
Cool.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Let's go on to Batman and Red Robin. Writer is Peter J. Tomasi. Pencils by Patrick Gleason. Inker Mick Gray. Colorist John Kalis. Letterer Carlos M. Mangua. With cover by Gleason, Gray, and Kalis. With assistant editor Darren Shane. Editor Rachel Glugstern. Excuse me. And group editor Michael Martz. And, of course, Batman was created by Bob Kane.
I got to tell you, I have such a tough time when it comes to the Batman titles, you know, any of them featuring Bruce, and the whole Bat family in general, deciding which books to talk about. And I picked this one mainly because of Carrie Kelly. It was kind of cool to see her in-continuity appearance in the New 52, you know, to see this character introduced, and her relationship with Damian. And I got to tell you, one of the strengths of Batman and Robin to me has been the great relationship development of Bruce with the world around him. You know, and obviously, in particular, Damian. This has been Damian's title. And to focus so heavily on letting us know something we didn't know about Damian. You know, that there was this relationship with her and Damian, and, you know, that it was... there was a financial transaction going on with this whole thing, so Damian could learn something new. Which, you know, Damian usually is the character I think we've always known Damian to be, the guy who is afraid to show that he needs to know anything. He prefers to say that I know it all. You know, it's kind of like my experience with him. As the kid became much more endearing to me over the years, it's great when you see things like this to say, you know what? There's so much about this character we knew. There's so much about this character that we didn't know. And that's what's tragic about the loss of the character. And that's what makes him feel more real to me. There was, in our Facebook group, someone posted, and I apologize for the moment not knowing who, because there was a lot of great discussion spinning out of this, was the idea of, how do you feel about Damian's death? How would you have voted? And my answer, I want to clarify my answer. My answer was, after reading a lot of these Aftermath issues, and I'm not just talking about in this title, in all of the titles that have featured Aftermath so far with Damian, reading those issues and seeing the impact that his death has had across the Bat universe, and this issue, seeing this kind of thing, I'm loving. I don't know that I would have voted for him to have been resurrected. You remember how we were talking about, like, I want him resurrected immediately? I like this. I like what we see going on here with the character, where we see Bruce dealing with the death of his son, and we've seen the various people in the Bat family. I felt like we've gotten to know them as people because of that loss and how they've dealt with it, what he's meant to them. I love Damian to death. If they brought him back tomorrow, I'd be clicking my heels together, because I just love the character. I want to read more Damian, and I'm perfectly fine if they find a way to resurrect the character at any point in time down the road. This issue means a lot to me because I feel like that isn't something that's going to happen. I feel like we're moving on. And I feel like this death's going to mean something. It's going to matter. If he is brought back, it's going to be like a Jason Todd kind of thing where it's going to be way down the road where somebody has an idea to bring him back. If I'm wrong on that, I'm thrilled. That's fine. But I don't have a problem with them heading in this direction because these issues emotionally have really mattered to me. And this one in particular, I really liked Bruce dealing with trying to face that his son had a part of his life he didn't know about. Trying to, resolve that. How much do I want to know about that? How much do I want to know about this person who was in his son's life who was a secret? What did this person mean to him? Was there a relationship there? Was there not? These are questions that had to be going through Bruce's head, and I love they were going through mine as I was reading the story. I love that they used Carrie Kelly for this purpose. It's a great way to use this event that they've got going on right now to kind of tease a character from Dark Knight Returns and bring in that character in. I liked how they did this. To me, it all just played out very, very well. The timeliness of this with what we're going to be doing starting next episode, going through the various Frank Miller stories that have impacted the Bat universe, is perfect. But what a great character to be brought in.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny because how would I vote, with Damian? And, I still... I'm loving these Requiem stories. I'm loving just seeing his reaction and just, I hate the fact that my friend is in so much pain and these people that, I'm close with, and I feel a connection with them. Like these are my friends. These are the people I would fight alongside and they're in so much pain. But I love the story. I love what we're getting. I love seeing Bruce's reaction, him go through all these different stages of grief, of anger, of rage, of just everything trying to deal with this and just try to come to terms with what he's lost. That I'm kind of with you where now that I've seen where they're going with this, I wouldn't vote against this. And I loved Damian. I wanted the little monster to live on. I wanted to see all those stories where I wanted to see his first date. I wanted to see him try to have a normal life, interact with somebody, or do some type of just quote-unquote normal thing. And I wanted those moments, but I think that's what's making his death so powerful. It makes it such a reaction, such a real feeling to me. It's a true emotional response. And that's what you get when someone so young dies. You get these moments of, what about this? What, never saw this. This could have happened. Oh, and then seeing he's had this side life. He had this little friendship, this interaction that Bruce didn't know about. Yeah. He pulled one over on Batman. How many people can say that?
You know what, though? I actually liked Alfred's explanation of it. It takes it to a different place than what you're talking about there. Which was, I mean, I get what you're saying. He kept something secret from Batman, and I agree with you. So I'm not diminishing what you're saying. But Alfred's dialogue with Bruce, where Bruce is saying here, I want to know who's in Damian's life and why he feels he should keep her a secret. Again, present tense. Yeah. We all need to carve out a space that's just our own, Master Bruce. Damian was no different. So you're saying I don't give my son enough space? Please, but at that moment, and I want to go to what Alfred says next in a second, but that moment, what Alfred's saying is, he just needed this for himself. It wasn't about sticking one to his dad or pulling one over. And I know you didn't mean it that way. But I loved the subtlety of it, that there's a reality. Damian's human. And this is something this book in particular has been really gifted at. Making Damian feel three-dimensional, feel like a real boy. Even though he went through all this intense training, he had this crazy upbringing and all that, this book fleshed him out and made him feel real and natural. Great job with this. Please forgive me. I'm sure you don't realize it, but I'm worried that you keep referring to Damian in the present tense. Yes, thanks for pointing that out to me, Alfred. And for her to open the door.
Wearing a Robin costume. Oh, my God.
At a superhero party. Yeah, what are the odds? Geeky moment. Now, you didn't know who this was when you read this, did you?
I had a brain cramp. And, I don't know why. I guess I just wasn't thinking universe I don't know. Brain cramp is the best I can do. It didn't connect to me initially that this was Dark Knight Returns Robin. This was that character. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, female. And it just, for some reason, and I don't know. I don't know why. For some reason, it just didn't collect for me. And you look at the fold out page; she almost looks exactly how she looked in the series. So it should have connected with me for some reason. I don't know why it didn't. I got no explanation on that.
I like that moment where she's asking, "Where's Damien?" and Bruce can't answer the question. Bruce left because he couldn't answer the question. He couldn't face her with that answer. And I like that she's, there's that financial exchange between her and Damien, but obviously there was more there. There was a friendship there. And it's funny how, like, it's clear that between the two of them there was some form of connection. This was a friend in his life that Bruce never knew about. The emotion that Bruce is going through here, when you see him in that moment, it's, again, great setup to what we see with Frankenstein. I so did not expect Frankenstein to pop into here. I'm like, what? Yeah. Frankenstein? Where are we going with this? Oh my gosh, does this make sense? You can't use a Lazarus pit. Or at least that seems to be the direction we're going in right now. So what's he looking at? This person that's brought back to life. Now, this is where it pays off to have been reading Frankenstein. We know what each of those body parts does to Frankenstein. There is a memory of the person that was a part of that. Whether they're good or bad or indifferent, those memories affect Frankenstein. We know that, if you've been reading that series. And if not, that's what's happening. Frankenstein's body parts aren't all his. They're mishmashes from all over the place, and there is a memory involved in them, which is something that's very hard to live with for Frank in many cases. So this is Frank's life. Bruce wants to use this method to try and bring back his son. And Frankenstein's like, I can't let you do this to somebody else. The nobility of that's something I've really loved about the Frankenstein character in the DC universe. I love this guy. I think he's a great character. I love the series. I'm glad to see that he's in Justice League Dark because this is a character that needs to stick around. The nobility of this character is something that I think is really strong because we see that in the classic Frankenstein movies. There's like a kind of a nobility to him trying to protect the female and that type. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that misunderstood monster kind of thing. I like that this Frankenstein has a bit of that theme to him, which adds a tragedy to his story. I like that he let Bruce do this crazy experimentation to him. That, like, who else would do this? Even, I'm sorry, if I come back as Frankenstein, I'm not letting you unravel me and put me on a table and leave me in pieces to prove a point. He did that.
Yeah, well, again, we always talk about with Frankenstein about the nobility. He recognizes this is a grieving father. He recognizes the pain that Bruce is going through, and so there is going to be a level of, okay, I got to help this guy get through it. But there is still those moments where he's like, you can't do this unholy thing. This isn't life. This is, his existence isn't exactly, bringing, the thought of bringing your kid back to this kind of life isn't something you should want to have. And I love the fact that Frankenstein's trying to let Bruce realize that on his own, and it's not even until Tim shows up that we get a stopping of this, but Bruce still never really gets that glimpse of it. Bruce never really understood what both Frankenstein and Tim were trying to do. And it's that grieving father. It's that father who's, and especially any father who loses their child would go through this tremendous amount of pain. This is Batman, the man who prepares for everything, the man who's able to, completely, outthink, outwit, outmove his enemies, he's lost his son. He can't, and it's him trying to deal with it. And I love seeing just, how Bruce is breaking down mentally, physically, how the beard isn't, he's getting a little scruffy. He's being, very curt and, short with Alfred. It's, he's going off into the middle of Castle Frankenstein in the middle of the Arctic Circle, away from everybody else, because he needs his room to do his freakish experiments. That he knows in his heart is wrong, but he's got to do something. This is his son. He's got to try. And I love seeing that.
The amazing thing is that Bruce would go to these levels. That shows how driven he is. I like seeing those scars. This is not something we would ever see Batman justify or be okay with. Batman would normally consider this. Batman would be the first one to stop this experiment in normal situations. So for him to be here doing this shows what's happened to him as a father. That's what I loved about the power of this issue. I don't think Batman needs to be flawless. I'm a fan of the strategist. I'm a fan of the Batman who's one step ahead of everybody else. But I'm also the fan of the human. And I like when we get to see these moments where we're reminded that Batman is still a man. He's still a human being. We talk about that with Superman. We like seeing when Superman's human side brought to light. These moments remind us that Batman is a man. He's human. He's fallible. He can make mistakes, errors in judgment. I like that Frankenstein played possum, and was trying to get to him, give him a chance to come to his own conclusion through dialogue before realizing that, hey, I can break out of this at any point in time. That's again, that goes back to the nobility. How many people would do that? You're going to put me in what kind of goo? And I'm just going to sit here and take it because I'm hoping you're going to come to your senses. I just think that's really cool.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and again, as I said, this is Frank being Frank. And he had the plan up until a point. Unfortunately, he is up against Batman. And, Bruce, even though Bruce is, a little bit sick and a little bit twisted and a little bit, grieving, he's still Batman and he's still able to get one up on him. And I love just seeing that happen. And then Bruce is just methodically taking him apart, literally, and experimenting and trying to figure out what is that spark of life, because he wants to bring Damian back. And it was such a just cool moment of seeing that play out. And then as you get the shock on Tim's face when he realizes what's going on.
Yeah, and not knowing quite how to, like, Alfred, I think, deep down knew too. Mm-hmm. Which was kind of the interesting thing. I think Alfred knew exactly where he was, because I'm convinced Alfred, to me, there's an intelligence to Alfred that I think matches Bruce's. A lot of times Bruce's deductive reasoning and a lot of the stuff that Bruce does, I feel that Alfred over the years has been a molding figure to what's going on with Bruce, but also has learned from Bruce. And I think there's been an interesting partnership exchange between Alfred and Bruce that's on a level that's very different than him and any of the Robins throughout the years. I don't know, there was something that was really neat about that. I loved finally seeing a really strong, isolated sequence of events with Bruce and Tim, where, I don't know about you, this felt like very much like Tim and Bruce.
Yeah.
There's times where you sit there and go, okay, is this on some level the same Tim Drake in tone that we've always known? I needed, as a reader, this moment. It was great to have this. And to see Tim have to make the decision, how much of this can I allow? And how much of this, am I going to let continue? Whatever you're thinking, it's not going to work. You can't bring him back. I can and I will. For him to have pulled the batarangs on Tim, mm-hmm. A kid who's like a son to him, wow. And Frankenstein sitting there and, clicking in at that. Just great moments where, Tim has to make this decision to put a stop to it. And what has this done to the relationship of Bruce and Tim?
Eventually, they'll be fine. Eventually. Mm-hmm. Right now, this is one of those nail in the coffin, for lack of better terms. But Tim had to do it. Bruce was over the edge, and Tim had to shut him down and stop him from making the mistake that Bruce will regret the rest of his life if he even tried it.
Right.
If Bruce had gone any farther than this, it would have been catastrophic on Bruce's own personal recovery. Eventually, Bruce will come back. Eventually, he'll see, hey, I was wrong. And we may even get a moment where he apologizes to Tim and say, hey, sorry I did that to you. And I'm kind of curious if we'll ever get an apology to Frankenstein, because he kind of owes him one as well. And those are the things that came out of this, that came out of his death, that I'm looking forward to seeing. I want to see long-term effects, where this goes. When is that moment that Tim and Bruce get back together? They get, that connection. They get that friendship. They, that family feel. When is it that, Bruce makes amends with Frankenstein saying, hey, I was, in a bad place. Sorry about that.
Batman, I've allowed you to do this so that you can see that I'm neither dead nor alive. Do not do this to your child. It goes against the laws of nature. Let the boy rest in peace. In that moment, for Bruce to be thinking to himself, first of all, what would it do to those cadavers, bringing them back to life like this, to do this test run on them? You're not only what he would do to Damian, ethically, what he would do to those cadavers. They donated themselves to science. They didn't donate themselves to come back as Frankenstein.
Right.
That's, whoa. And who signs up for that?
And does he put him down afterwards?
Although I admit I've got that on my donor card on the back. It's okay to bring me back as Frankenstein.
Cool.
Did you check that box?
No, I didn't. I did check donor body parts, but I did not check the make me Frankenstein.
When did you renew?
It's unnatural. It's against the laws of man.
But when did you renew your license?
Just recently.
Okay, yeah, because I had that on mine, and I guess I didn't read the fine print.
Yeah. Well, hey, I always read fine print. You got to read every line of the contract.
So was Damian getting lessons in this kind of game?
Yeah, and this is the game that he and Dick Grayson were going to play.
Right.
So Damian basically was getting some schooling on it so he could take Grayson.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that was I kind of like the fact that, and also one of the things I wondered in the letter that Carrie sent to Damian, she was like, "Hey, 100 sessions, $1,000." I didn't take it that she took it. She was saying $1,000 per session. She was just saying total $1,000. Bruce took it as $1,000 per session and wrote a check for $10,000.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It says 10. Well, it says 10 sessions equals $1,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Bruce went $1,000 a session, or he did it just because Bruce is Bruce, or I don't know.
Well, I think it was because this is a person who was nice to his son, and did something, or did something for his son that was important. There was something there. I don't think Bruce will ever understand what that was, because you'd have to understand who Damian was, at a level that. Everybody has that part of their life that they hold in for themselves. And I love that Tomasi explored this. I think that's really cool. Showing us something that, none of us knew about Damian. And the only reason why it's being discovered right now is he's no longer there and these things happen to show up on the doorstep. Otherwise, Bruce would have never known about any of this.
Well, and the other thing from this bit I loved is the fact that when Carrie and her roommate are talking, and they're saying about how she never met Bruce Wayne before this. Like, well, there was always that big stretch limo, but I never saw anybody get in and out of it, in or out of it. And it's not like a little 10-year-old kid could drive that car. For a fact, Damian was driving that bad boy.
Right.
I love this, just the mental image I have in my head of Damian sitting behind the wheel, just driving down the road as if it's nothing because, hey, I need the car, so let me take the big stretch.
Or here's the other trick. What if Alfred's dialogue in the beginning where he said, sometimes, your boy needed something of his own, what if Alfred was preserving that? What if Alfred knew? And what if Alfred was saying, I'm going to respect that this was something that was Damian's. And if Bruce discovers things along the way about it, I'll let him. But this, in some ways is that Alfred's way of connecting with, a secret maybe he and Damian shared. Because
definitely.
It was, and that would be something, because Alfred's part of the grieving process here too. Is that something where in his mind, Damian, I promised to keep this between Damian and me, and I'm going to stick to that promise? So there was part of me, I agreed with everything you said, where, maybe it was Damian driving it, but there was another part of me that was thinking back to that very opening section where Alfred was explaining, it seemed, I was thinking, does Alfred know because Alfred was a part of it? Because that wouldn't be above, Damian to say, this, I don't want my father to know about this. Pennyworth, yeah. and I could see Alfred saying, what, this kid needs this. This is a chance for this kid to be a kid and to be human and to have those moments that are private to himself. And in this crazy world that he's a part of, he needs this, and I respect that. And I'm going to honor his wishes here. So is that part of it? I don't know. And I think it works on both levels. I don't know that there's a right answer there, and there may be another possibility that we're not even thinking of. But I love the reality of that. And it's another example of where I don't know that I need to know. I like that there's certain things that maybe we can just kind of, as outsiders, as friends, watching this go on, we can make our own judgments and not know the truth. There's something that I think to me is pivotal to this. And I just really loved this issue. I've been loving, Batman Inc.'s done a great job with this. Batman has done a great job with this. Nightwing's done a great job with this. All the books that have been dealing with the death of Damian have just done a really great job of this. And just addressing what I think is just a powerful happening. And,
oh, God, yeah.
This is an example of that's not a stunt. Yeah. So just a great job.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
I want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. And you can find that in our show notes and available on our website as well. I also want to shout out our website. It's ragingbullets.com. We also have a wonderful Facebook page and Facebook group. Remember, the Facebook group is a group that you can join. We have an amazing group of people there. We have over 260 people that are in our Facebook group, and we have a lot of regular participants who are starting amazing conversations that are not just about DC. They're throughout comics, and people are sharing their blogs and Kickstarters and just conversations about anything in geek culture that they think are relevant. And please, I encourage everyone to do that. I look at it as a community, and I think it's really, really great that there's those of you who are a part of that community. They're just really embracing chatting with each other and taking the show beyond, anything that we're doing here, because I think positive sharing of everything that's going on in comics and in, anything that we all like is a lot of what I'm looking for out of anything associated with us. So I think it's really, really great, and I want to just thank everyone who's a participant there. We're also on Google+. Our show website is actually linked to Twitter, so every time I post a new posting about the episodes, when they're going to be released, what content's going to be on them, you will find that immediately released on Twitter as well, which then goes to our Raging Bullets page on Facebook. So, we're available in all those places, and I try to keep news up to date on the website all the time. So please, there's a lot of opportunity to follow the show, and we really appreciate all your support. I also want to take a quick chance to just shout out all of you that support us in social media and on and offline, anything that you're doing to let people know about our podcast. We don't have an advertising budget, and it's really one of those things where we rely heavily on you guys to let people know about us, to get the word out. And I just really want to appreciate the community that supports this podcast, because we have been very, very lucky to have such a loyal friendship base. Whether you listen all the time or you listen casually, people have been very kind about pointing people in our direction that they think would be interested in the product that we put out here. And I really want to just say thank you and how much we appreciate you for doing that. Sponsoring us this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, Action Comics number 21. Regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. Amazing deals over at DCBService.com. Remember, they're a Comixology and iVerse Media digital partner. Link your account there and earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. They are definitely your comic book pre-order source. Remember, you can get trades and hardcovers and action figures and statues and cards and calendars. Anything you can imagine is available from across comics over at DCBService.com at those amazing discounts. Over at InStockTrades.com, Dial H, collecting issues 1 through 6. It's Volume 1 Into You. 168-page trade paperback, $14.99. Regularly 50% off, only $7.49. And orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So it's great if you're looking for a lot of trades or hardcovers to get that. But their shipping is always also at low costs. So if there's just that one book, like let's say you're like listening to this and going, hey, I want to pick up Dial H, you're getting that at low cost because it's 50% off. And you're getting it at a low-cost shipping anyway. So if you're just picking up a trade or two, you can still do that and still get an amazing savings. So I just want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Jim, our next episode. It's episode 350, which is a big milestone for us. We just passed 7 years at the end of March, but 350 is another 350 episodes. Who would have thunk we would still be doing this? We're going to begin a 3-part cycle, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be discussing on the first episode Batman Year 1 from Frank Miller and the animated release, and kind of talking about the two different versions and what we enjoyed about them as we start celebrating Frank Miller. The next episode, 351, we are going to be discussing The Dark Knight Returns. After that, we are going to be in the animated feature, obviously, that goes along with that as well. And then we're going to end off with, on 352, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, which you've never read, right, Jim?
Yeah, this is my first reading.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to talk about all three of those particular books. The reason why we actually had a couple people ask, why aren't you guys talking about All-Star Batman and Robin? We talked about that book as it was released, casually on the show. We tackled a number of issues of that. So I feel like that's something we've done in the past on the podcast. These are all stories from Frank Miller's run, pivotal run, that we haven't done before. So that's why we're really focusing on those. And plus it's a lot of content over the 3 episodes. Yeah. The reason why we're splitting them up that way is we're also going to have another segment on each episode. So there's going to be some new content on each one. Our next episode, we're also going to be joined by Tom King, author Tom King. He wrote one of those stories in that great Vertigo anthology, Time Warp. We're also going to be discussing his book, A Once Crowded Sky. So it'll be great to have Tom King on the show. And then on the other episodes, we're going to be talking about new comic content. We're going to have other segments on there. I don't know what they look like yet. We're just going to be fleshing them out as we go along. So we will be touching on Frank Miller every one of those episodes, but also have another segment to enjoy as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us for the last 7 years. It's really great that we're finishing this recording on Superman Day. Which is, April 18th. This will be released on Sunday, but this is when we're actually recording it. I just think it's cool that Cleveland acknowledged this, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of from Cleveland, and I was glad to see some form of bigger acknowledgement than at least nothing that we've gotten in the past. Yeah. So I think it's really great, and I hope this is a start of something. I really do, because I think it's good for comics. It's good for these characters to get a spotlight in the media. And, it's just a fun time to be a comics fan. Especially, I think the comic content we talked about in this episode just shows that there's just a ton of quality in the comic book medium. And, I don't know, just a great episode and fun to record. And always great to record with you, Jim. So we'll see everyone next week.
Bye. Bye.
You actually wave?
Yes, I actually
I was exporting the show files. So I wasn't actually paying attention. I was paying attention to what you were saying, but I was also paying attention to making sure I actually save what we recorded, so that way people...
For 7 years, I have been waving every time I say bye.
Every episode?
Every episode.
Who are you waving to?
I don't know.
See, now,
and it's just I don't know, I just do it like bye.
So see, now I'm wondering if I'm rude for not waving back.
Wow. Yeah. I'm not going to say
well, here's the thing.
I'm not going to be mean that way, but it'd be nice.
Well, but here's the thing. You can't really tell me if you're waving at me or not. So I could be being very rude, or other than that, I could be offended that you're not bothering to wave to me.
Yes, I could just be waving to the people that are inside my head.
Right. Well, see, and then you could be the rude one then. So I don't know.
Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Eagle eyes can't